10 years ago, human civilization collapsed when gigantic monoliths fell to the world. They came with hordes of demonic beasts, slaughtering countless innocents. Itsuki Tenma lost both of his parents that night. They wanted to save him. They wanted him to live a happy life. On the contrary, Itsuki now was doomed for a life drowning in anger and despair. He swore to take his revenge one day. Humanity researched the monoliths. Some humans awakened insane powers that was beyond their reach in the past. But now, they have a chance to survive. Itsuki's awakening was different. His class was Order Breaker, a special class with some unique traits. His system lets him analyze any skill and acquire a corresponding counterskill. With this gift, he began his journey to avenge his parents. He gets trained by the most powerful master in the country. Will he become a hero? Or will he become a villain? A cold-blooded killer that acts only with anger? I'll let you decide on your own. But first, we need to rewind. 10 years ago, a pillar of purple light shot into the sky above the city. That light brought Linga, the demon of ruin, straight into the human realm. An army of monsters flooded the streets while civilians panicked and ran for their lives. A skeleton monster struck down Itsuki's father right in front of him. Monsters slaughtered everyone in sight as Itsuki was pulled away from the chaos. Before vanishing into blue flames, his mother told him to run. Back in the present, his classmate notices him spacing out during a school assembly. She asks him what's wrong when she spots a tear falling down his face. His friend jokes around and points toward the speaker on stage. He points out how strangely the guest speaker is dressed. He reveals that the speaker is actually General Commander Izumi Nento. Itsuki stares at the armored commander, learning he was the first awakener. Commander Nento addresses the students, inviting them to touch the monolith to awaken. The crowd freaks out with excitement as the stone rises from the floor. His classmate gets hyped, thinking they finally have a shot at getting powers. Itsuki walks past his friends with a dark look and glowing red eyes. He smirks, knowing the day he gets his revenge has finally arrived. Student after student touches the stone and fails to get anything. The tester calls up the school bully Oishi Hikaru, while the crowd despairs. The stone suddenly sparks with lightning the second Oishi touches it. Oishi awakens as a thunder elementalist with a total stat count of 12. Commander Nento's aide notes on the phone that his stats are pretty solid for a rookie. Oishi raises his arms on stage and soaks in all the praise. Itsuki cuts right past him and places his hand directly on the monolith. The crowd whispers that Itsuki is completely done for now that he angered Oishi. From the balcony, Commander Nento senses an intense wave of emotion coming from Itsuki. Itsuki presses his hand against the stone, channeling 10 years of pure hatred. A massive blue warrior aura erupts behind him, shocking Commander Nento. A gigantic blue flower pillar bursts upward from the monolith. The entire school looks up in utter disbelief as his friends cheer for him. The officer realizes this phenomenon only happens when the ultra-rare Order Destroyer appears. Itsuki checks his initial status window, only to find every single stat at 0. His Nirvana gift immediately triggers, boosting all his stats by 200 and bringing his total to 800. He clenches his fist with confidence, ready to wipe out every monster in existence. Oishi and the officers stare at his status readings in total shock. Itsuki calmly adjusts his tie with glowing blue eyes in the dark shadow. His public status card confirms a massive total stat score of 800. The entire assembly goes wild, cheering for the crazy numbers he just pulled. Oishi fumes with jealousy as lightning surges around his hands. He fires off his silver snake lightning attack directly at Itsuki's back. Itsuki doesn't even move as his over-mimesis skill detects the attack and starts analyzing it. He stands there calmly while the skill analysis rapidly climbs. He teleports directly behind Oishi, grabbing his shoulder and warning him that he'd be dead if he were a monster. Oishi drops to his knees in terror while the other students laugh at him. Floating in energy, Itsuki notes how fast the system analyzes low-rank skills. The system confirms he officially acquired the C-rank skill Thunderclap Wave. Another bright flash explodes from Itsuki, making a classmate glad he brought sunglasses. Itsuki stands tall with his arms out, completely covered in electric shockwaves. The crowd watches his stats jump even higher, reaching a total of 840. Out of nowhere, a dark monolith wrapped in lightning crashes straight down from the sky. Commander Nento cancels the assembly and orders an immediate evacuation as his aide realizes Itsuki is the target. While hundreds of students flee in panic, Itsuki calmly walks straight toward the impact zone. His classmate screams for him to run as a monster starts creeping out. He looks back with a gentle smile and tells her to trust him. He approaches the crater, reflecting on his very first battle as an awakener. A level 8 skeleton soldier emerges, and Itsuki smirks, glad he gets to destroy the same species that killed his parents. Itsuki charges up with blue lightning, ready to test his freshly acquired skill in real combat. His initial strike detonates with enough lightning force to hurl the beast backward. The crowd loses their minds, seeing a brand new rookie knock back a level 8 monster. Everyone knows these skeleton soldiers are legendary for their high defense and deadly skills. His classmates scream for him to run as the monster powers up. Instead of dodging, Itsuki lets the blue fire hit him to start analyzing the skill. Taking direct damage causes his system analysis meter to climb much faster. Spectators panic knowing those blue flames can melt high-level fighters to ash. Itsuki stands inside the burning flames as his coat burns away, and analysis ticks past 80%. The burning sensation triggers a memory of his mother dying in blue fire 10 years ago. He endures the fire with a glowing red eye, waiting for his system to finish parsing the skill. A blue lotus aura flares around him, making the crowd realize he is not done yet. The system hits 100%, completing the analysis and unlocking Black Wall. The new skill grants 20 points across all stats while cleansing debuffs and fully healing his body. With his total stats boosting to 920, Itsuki knows he now has enough raw power to break through. Ice begins forming across his skin as the blue lotus aura hovers around him. His classmates cheer in pure relief, seeing him stand completely unharmed. Commander Nento's aide notes that Order Destroyer is turning out to be an incredible class. She wonders if his instant recovery skill has any actual limits. The skeleton soldier roars and charges in for a final desperate attack. Itsuki triggers Black Ice Wall, manifesting dark crystalline ice along his arm. He locks his eyes on the target through his new ice armor visor. He lunges forward clad in crystalline ice armor and crackling lightning. In a single flash, he blitzes past and completely shatters the beast. The students stand in shock, barely able to track his instantaneous movement. The school bully trembles in fear, realizing Itsuki is far beyond normal rookie levels. Residual ice crystals float around Itsuki as everyone marvels at his combined defense and offense. His classmate runs up to congratulate him, but Itsuki immediately checks for Seiya. Rikiru mentions that Seiya left earlier looking like she was on the verge of tears. Commander Nento orders his aide to manage the cleanup while he goes to meet Itsuki. Rikiru tries to reassure Itsuki that Seiya probably went to awaken her own gift. Commander Nento approaches and calls Itsuki by his full name. The armored general stands face to face with the shirtless young rookie. The crowd whispers in disbelief as the nation's top commander gives Itsuki his full attention. Rikiru backs off nervously, overwhelmed by Nento's intimidating aura. Nento looks him over and tells him he is a very special case. Itsuki questions what the general means by calling him special. Nento points directly to the deep anger and hatred driving his heart. He asks Itsuki what caused him to carry such intense hatred inside. Itsuki reveals that 10 years ago his parents sacrificed themselves to save him during a monster attack. The nightmare comes back to him, remembering the giant beast claws slashing down. He remembers kneeling helplessly beside his dying mother on the ruined ground. As blue flames consumed her, his mother told him to keep walking his own path. Young Itsuki could only watch in absolute terror as she vanished before his eyes. Above the destruction stood Linga, the demon of ruin ruling over the slaughter. That trauma ignited the red glow in his eyes, cementing his vow for vengeance. Back in the present, tears stream down as Itsuki vows to eradicate every monster. Nento observes that even while consumed by pure hatred, Itsuki still sheds tears. Itsuki explains that ever since that day, his left eye stopped producing tears while his right eye cries on its own. He uses those tears as a constant reminder to never let his hatred fade, so Nento offers to train him. Nento explains how the world governments established the Salvation League to fight back. He breaks down the massive resources provided to trainees, and Itsuki accepts on the spot. Nento reminds him that such elite treatment comes with fighting on the front lines. His aide Choha returns with reports after securing the surrounding area. She is stunned to learn Nento has already taken Itsuki as his official disciple. The general outlines the upcoming tournament test, where only the top 100 make the cut. Nento notes that humanity's strongest hero set the all-time point record 11 years ago. Hearing that high standard only fuels Itsuki's determination to surpass it. Seiya steps out holding her new Holy Priestess artifact, having awakened as an A-rank healer. She looks toward Itsuki with teary eyes, determined to stand beside him as an equal. Nento watches the horizon, believing Itsuki is the new sun waiting to rise. He brings Itsuki to the massive Salvation League training facility. Nento points out how open portals continuously spawn beasts if left unchecked. He explains that this facility was built specifically to isolate active portals for training. Itsuki realizes he is looking at a controlled battleground designed for constant combat. Nento warns him that this specific stage is known as the rookie's graveyard due to its high mortality rate. He reveals that humanity's strongest hero cleared this stage in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Nento challenges Itsuki to beat that record if he truly intends to surpass him. Nento promises to officially take him as a student if he can clear it in under 3 minutes. Itsuki stares down the dangerous portal with absolute confidence, ready to break the record. The crowd immediately starts whispering when they see Tenma walking side by side with General Commander Izumi Nento. Looking up at the board, Tenma notices this artificial stage is set to level 10, 2 levels higher than the skeleton soldier. While people assume he is just flirting with the receptionist, Tenma politely steps up and asks to register. When she asks for his party size, he deadpans that he is taking on the stage all by himself. The receptionist thinks he is joking and warns him that rookies can easily die inside. The bystanders burst out laughing, totally convinced he just got rejected while trying to pick up girls. Tenma sets the record straight instantly, telling her he has zero interest in her and only cares about entering. Flustered, she offers her contact info just to get him to save face and walk away. He shuts her down again, demanding she open the gate instead of wasting time. She gives up and clears his access, washing her hands of whatever happens to him inside. The crowd laughs behind his back, betting he will run out crying in less than a minute. Tenma checks his wristband scanner as the gate prepares to register his entry. He cracks his knuckles and reminds himself that he promised Nento he would finish in under 3 minutes. The portal activates, warping him straight into the grassy stage arena. Tenma cleaves through the tree spirits with an ice axe, taunting them as they fall. More tree spirits sprout from the ground, swarming him from every angle. Up in the observation deck, Choha asks Nento why he threw a rookie straight into Tsutsumi's old trial ground. She remembers Tsutsumi obliterating a level 97 beast, stepping entirely beyond human limits. To the world, Kazunari Tsutsumi stood like a savior illuminated by divine light. Nento counters that Tenma is the exact opposite, a devil fueled entirely by hatred. Back in the fight, Tenma stands over chopped monsters, annoyed that his copy skill has not even triggered. The dust settles across the field as the defeated wood lies motionless. An eerie quiet fills the meadow right before the monster remains begin to pulse. Tenma looks down at the remains, wondering if a level 10 stage is really this weak. Suddenly, the system detects self-regeneration magic and starts its analysis countdown at 5%. The tree spirit fully reassembles its head and lashes out with massive wooden tendrils. Its stats jump to 450, so Tenma equips his black ice wall armor to prepare for a heavy clash. He leaps forward to shred it faster than it can heal, pushing his analysis to 17%. His vertical ice strikes slice through the monster as the system timer reaches 21%. The monster's wooden skull splits clean down the center. Tenma grins with glowing red eyes, determined to chop it into fine dust. Wooden shards explode across the arena as his rapid barrage lands. Panting in the floating spores, Tenma lets his ice armor fade as his magic runs low. Glowing green spores begin pulling the shattered wood back together once again. The beast revives, but Tenma notices each regeneration speeds up over mimesis, jumping straight to 60%. With the 3-minute mark approaching, he stacked both lightning and ice skills to force endless regenerations. He takes hits directly to drain his magic to absolute zero, gambling his life as analysis reaches 80%. At 85%, he resolves that dying here just proves he was never strong enough anyway. A cloud of impact mist masks the brutal exchange. Blood drips from his mouth as his magic completely runs out. Sharp wooden tendrils impale his body, right as the counter ticks to 99%. Bleeding out, Tenma smirks as blue aura erupts around him, proving overmimesis needs 0 mana to complete at 100%. The system unlocks Lotus Explosion, a high-tier skill that turns magic into explosive area damage. The acquisition reward boosts all his stats by 20, clears his debuffs, and fully restores his body. He locks onto the looming tree spirit and triggers his newly acquired skill. A giant lotus burst erupts through the arena, vaporizing everything in sight. Tenma stands in the clearing wind, thoroughly impressed by the destruction. Looking down at the massive crater, he realizes overmimesis refilled his magic energy the second it hit 0. Out in the lobby, the receptionist panics as the timer hits 2 minutes and 9 seconds, sure he is dead. Choha doubts he can beat the legendary record, even if he manages to survive. Suddenly, the exit gate flashes green, stunning the entire crowd. Tenma walks out with a torn shirt as the leaderboard updates him to first place at 2 minutes and 14 seconds. The crowd goes wild seeing him covered in beast blood, and Tenma asks Nento if he passed the test. He formally addresses General Commander Nento as his teacher. Nento praises him proudly, leaving Choha amazed to see her father genuinely happy. The receptionist nervously hands Tenma a reward box for breaking the record and apologizes for being rude. Tenma thanks her, pointing out that her trying to stop him proved she genuinely cared about his safety. She turns bright red as Tenma smiles warmly at her. Choha snaps him out of it, telling him they are moving on. While Choha warns him not to get cocky, Nento suggests stepping up to advanced stages. Choha confirms that his raw combat output makes him ready for advanced stage territory. She explains that monster danger is not just about level, but their species classification. Beasts with human-level intelligence are far deadlier than instinct-driven monsters. She reveals that most advanced stages lie in North District 4, making it their next destination. Tenma's eyes light up with a chilling aura, thrilled that intelligent monsters will actually feel pain when he slaughters them. Choha breaks into a sweat, terrified by the sudden surge of malice in his eyes. Meanwhile, in North District 4, Ryuji Kinoshita lounges like a king while a servant shines his boots. Sipping wine, Ryuji declares that every stage in the district belongs exclusively to him. He scoffs at official clearance rules, stating that waiting in line is strictly for commoners. Hands open an ornate wooden box, revealing a glowing gem inside. Tenma Itsuki inspects the crystal, while Izumi Nento asks if he has ever seen a karma stone before. Itsuki notes that the previous stone he found in the stage was green instead. Blue-haired female officer, Choha steps in to explain that karma stones store experience points from fallen beasts. Choha wonders aloud why karma stone appeared naturally inside a low-level stage. Choha turns in confusion as Nento points out that the anomaly stems directly from Itsuki's unique gift. Nento explains that because Itsuki cannot level up normally, unabsorbed karma in sealed stages solidifies into stones. He clarifies that unsealed karma gets absorbed by nearby awakened, but sealed spaces force it to crystallize. Choha questions how Itsuki can possibly grow stronger if his level is permanently locked. Nento sternly cuts her off, reminding her that an awakened's gift details are strict secrets. Itsuki smirks and accepts Nento's orders to keep his power secret and clear 6 high-rank stages. Over at North District 4's execution ground, guards block hopeful awakened from entering. Students argue with the guards until a menacing figure looms up behind them. A violent strike sends one of the protesting students flying backward. Auga takes steps forward and throws a heavy punch at the remaining fighters. The sheer force creates a massive shockwave across the entrance. The fallen student gasps in disbelief when his B-rank Earth Spine skill fails to leave a scratch. Auga smirks, bragging that the attack did not even itch. Terrified onlookers call Auga a monster for shrugging off a piercing technique. Auga grabs the student face first with glowing eyes. He slams the student head first onto the ground. Auga lifts his beaten victim, warning that no one enters without Ryoji Kinoshita's permission. He holds up both bloodied fighters as Ryoji's guards laugh in the background. Auga casually tosses the beaten student aside like trash. Itsuki steps in and effortlessly catches the falling student while Choha watches. Auga confronts the newcomer, and Itsuki calmly realizes he just needs to defeat Auga to get inside. Itsuki recalls Nento's advice to act with all his might whenever he knows he is in the right. He hands the injured student over to Choha and tells her to treat their wounds. Auga checks Itsuki's status window and sees a level 0 order breaker staring him down without flinching. Auga flexes his level 12 stats, confident his 605 total stats create an unbridgeable gap. Itsuki dashes forward and delivers a lightning-fast opening punch. His fist impacts directly against Auga's cheek, but Auga hardens his skin in time. Auga's face turns entirely to metal, stopping the strike cold. Auga grins through the blow, praising Itsuki's speed. He mocks Itsuki's punch, taunting that his hits lack real power. Itsuki triggers Overmimesis to begin analyzing Auga's C-rank metallized skill. Itsuki weaves around Auga's guard, targeting exposed flesh while analysis reaches 5%. Auga swings wildly, calling Itsuki a weakling who lacks true strength. Itsuki's eye glows blue as electric sparks ripple around his feet. He bursts behind Auga with thunder ripple, catching the metal user completely off guard. Itsuki lands a flurry of strikes as his analysis percentage shoots up toward 66%. Auga breaks into a sweat, unable to react or metallize fast enough to defend. He panics internally, unable to even shout for his guards to step in and help. Cornered, Auga grits his teeth and resolves to force out his maximum power. Auga flexes as metallic armor surges across his entire torso. Now completely coated in metal armor, Auga boasts while Itsuki's analysis hits 88%. Auga glares through his metal visor, declaring he will grant Itsuki a quick death. Itsuki calculates that full-body metallization drains massive mana, while analysis nears 99%. Analysis hits 100%, and a blue lotus aura blooms as Itsuki prepares to finish the fight instantly. The system confirms Overmimesis complete, unlocking the defense-ignoring, penetrating true sphere. Itsuki smirks, noting that Auga's stationary stance makes him the perfect slow target. Itsuki's total stats jump to 1040 as all debuffs clear from his body. He stands inside giant glowing lotus petals, manifesting a brilliant blue orb in his hand. Itsuki aims the penetrating true sphere directly at Auga and dares him to try dodging. The crowd can't believe Itsuki is trying to bypass a level 12 defense specialist with a level 0 orb. He sends the tiny black sphere floating right toward Take. Take just laughs it off, thinking the small orb won't do a thing. That confidence vanishes the second the sphere punches straight through his metallized arm. Blood sprays as Take screams in agony from the direct hit. Itsuki stands over him, casually noting he only aimed for the arm because Take is human. He warns the rest of the gang to back off before things get worse. Without another word, the thugs haul their bleeding leader away. The crowd immediately erupts, celebrating the bully getting put in his place. Local hunters suggest teaming up for the blazing rock stage, since the monsters there are just as tough. Hearing about high-defense monsters is music to Itsuki's ears, because it triggers his skill passive. They ask him which group he wants to join. Itsuki looks them dead in the eye and says he's going solo. The hunters immediately mock him for being arrogant enough to try a level 15 elite stage alone. Choha steps up to warn him that running low on mana in there will kill him. She gets defensive when he tells her not to worry, claiming she only cares because Nento would blame her. Itsuki touches the gate terminal, and his entry to the dungeon is officially approved. He steps into the fiery cavern, surrounded by dozens of stone monsters. He raises his hand to see if the stone statues qualify for his speed buff. As one charges, Itsuki fires penetration true sphere. The orb drills through the statue, instantly granting him a 100% flight speed boost. More stone monsters gather around him, roaring for a fight. He stacks another speed buff, but notes his mana is dropping fast. 2 more charge in while the stage boss still hasn't shown up. To conserve magic, Itsuki plans to line them up and kill both with one shot. A monster smashes the ground, sending Itsuki flying into the air. He uses the momentum to slide past the attack and line up his angle. His eye lights up red as everything falls into place. The orb pierces both statues in a single straight line, stacking 2 more speed buffs. Itsuki collapses onto his back, completely drained from running out of mana. The system window confirms his orb now moves fast enough to catch any running target. Just then, the level 15 boss Giant Stone Man, 28, appears using gigantification. Itsuki triggers Thunderclap Wave to boost his agility and dodge the massive fist. He spots a gap in the boss's stance and goes on the offensive. The giant swats him midair, making Itsuki realize his tiny sphere won't deal enough damage. Trapped mid-flight, he casts Black Ice Wall to absorb the heavy blow. The system detects the boss's gigantification skill and begins over-mimesis analysis. Itsuki smirks through the pain, realizing the size increase is just an adaptable skill. Meanwhile, at the Kinoshita estate, an aide gets an urgent call about the dungeon breach. Ryuji Kinoshita snaps at his subordinate for disrupting his quiet time. The aide stammers an apology while trying to report the situation. Ryuji wonders how anyone could bypass Take's defense, suspecting a high-level intruder. The subordinate promises to gather more intel on who defeated their top guard. Ryuji decides not to wait around and mobilizes his men to head to the dungeon directly. He barks orders for everyone to move out immediately. He vows to make whoever crossed his family pay dearly. Back in the cavern, over-mimesis hits 100%, bursting with blue electric power. The giant stone boss hesitates, sensing the sudden surge in energy. Itsuki checks his system and sees his passive speed buff doubled. With his stats restored, he dumps every drop of mana into growing the true sphere. The giant orb drops like a meteor, completely vaporizing the boss in a column of light. Itsuki wipes out the level 15 stone boss, instantly triggering a massive speed boost for his penetrating true sphere. Looking over his upgraded stats, he realizes leveling up these passives is actually going to be insanely useful. He figures if he keeps stacking passive range buffs, he will eventually be sniping disaster beasts from miles away. The stage screen flashes green, confirming he just cleared the level 15 dungeon in a mind-blowing 3 minutes and 1 second. The crowd outside loses their minds, unable to comprehend how a level 0 nobody just shattered the legendary record. Ageha Izumi watches with her glowing butterfly, completely amazed that Itsuki walked out of another high-rank stage without a single scratch. Itsuki steps out of the portal and gets distracted by the glowing butterfly fluttering right in front of him. Ageha proudly introduces herself as a Shikigami user, showing off her loyal jade butterfly. Curious about how this world works, Itsuki asks her to explain the different Awaken job classes. She breaks down the basics, starting with elementalists who control elements like fire, water, and lightning. She reminds him that his former bully Oishi was a prime example of a lightning element user. She adds that Augatake falls into the exact same category with his metal abilities. Then she explains Shikigami users, who fight by summoning loyal spirit beasts to do their dirty work. A quick system scan reveals Ageha is actually level 6, while her butterfly Shikigami sits at level 15. She smugly asks if he has any questions after her lesson. When Itsuki points out her summon is stronger than she is, she admits Shikigami absorb exp and level up way faster than their masters. Itsuki immediately locks in, realizing the fastest way to beat a Shikigami user is to just eliminate the master. Ageha notices his dark aura flaring up again and gets visibly unsettled by his terrifying focus. Moving on, she brings up the third job class, which happens to be the most mysterious of them all. Itsuki listens quietly as she references his own unique class, the Order Breaker. She explains that standard job skills cap out at S rank, but Order Breakers operate entirely outside the system with special Z rank skills. Itsuki starts worrying that she is analyzing him too closely, while Nento is not around to back him up. He tries changing the subject and asks her about the mysterious fourth job class. Ageha smirks and tells him he will just have to figure that out himself as payback for being so secretive. When Itsuki says he wants to rerun the stage right away, she drops the bombshell that dungeons have a 2-day cooldown. Realizing he cannot farm this stage for true sphere buffs, Itsuki decides to pivot and farm Lotus Explosion instead. He asks for a stage packed with monsters, and Ageha immediately knows the ideal location. She points him toward the wilderness of locusts, warning him that swarms of hundreds of beasts wait inside. She warns him that going in without area of effect skills is suicide, but Itsuki casually brush off her concern. Meanwhile, Ryuji Kinoshita arrives at the dungeon entrance, only to find the area completely deserted. His henchman confirms Itsuki already cleared the stage and left 30 minutes ago, leaving Ryuji furious. Determined not to let him get away, Ryuji orders his men to call in his best tracker to hunt Itsuki down. Elsewhere in the city, an assassin flees through the alleyways, regretting ever taking a hit job against Ryuji. He uses his Earth Escape skill to dive underground, desperate to put distance between himself and his pursuer. He finally pops back up onto a rooftop, convincing himself he made a clean getaway. Out of nowhere, a massive dark shadow pounces and pins him to the ground. The giant beast clamps its jaws around the assassin's head, waiting for its master's command. Trapped in the wolf's mouth, the terrified assassin stammers, asking how he was tracked down. A mysterious man steps out of the shadows, casually answering that his nose never misses a target. The hunter introduces himself as Wolf Dog Charles, Ryuji's feared tracker. The assassin begs for his life, desperate to bargain his way out. Charles just smiles coldly, telling him Ryuji would be mad if he let him live, before unleashing his hound to feed. As the hound devours the assassin, its status screen pops up, showing its level rising to 16. Charles answers a phone call from Ryuji's crew, shocked to learn that Augatake was brutally defeated. Tenma arrives at the Locust Wasteland, taking in the peaceful wheat fields surrounding the stage dome. Looking across the open landscape, he doubts whether there are actually any monster swarms out here. Ageha explains that reading an area's environment is essential for guessing what disaster beasts are lurking. She warns him that the stage is so dangerous that Command is even considering dismantling it. When Tenma asks why, Ageha points out that normal dungeons let you flee, but this place will trap you. Hearing how many monsters are waiting inside just makes Tenma smirk, leaving Ageha totally exasperated. As Tenma struts into the portal, Ageha realizes he forgot crucial lore about how the boss spawns endless swarms. Before Ageha can run in to warn him, a chilling presence suddenly appears right behind her. Wolf Dog Charles steps out of the shadows, politely asking her for directions. Inside the stage, Tenma claps his hands to taunt the hidden bugs and draw them out. A quiet scarecrow sits in the soil right before thousands of wings start buzzing underneath. System screens confirm these evil locusts are low-level, which fits his skill passive strategy. A dark swarm fills the sky, blocking out the sun completely. Tenma just grins, loving the fact that they are tightly grouped together. He equips his ice gauntlet and charges Lotus Explosion to wipe them all out at once. Tenma slams his fist down, detonating the magic seal right beneath the horde. A red explosion tears through the central ground, incinerating every bug in range. Kill notifications flood the screen, boosting his skill ranges with every monster defeated. Deleting 110 bugs instantly stacks his skill range passive to 110%. Tenma notices the dungeon clear message never popped up, making him realize something is wrong. Fresh rustling noises fill the air as surviving bugs pop back up around him. A new wave sweeps across the fields, surrounding Tenma in an instant. He realizes a hidden queen locust is using mother's will to endlessly spawn fresh swarms. Since he cannot see the boss, Tenma decides to keep farming the small fry to force it out. He sets off another Lotus Explosion, pushing his total skill range boost up to 220%. Tenma peers through the smoke, annoyed that the boss is still hiding from him. Chitinous legs burst out of the soil as even more bugs hatch immediately. His over-mimesis analysis hits 27%, but his remaining mana drops down to 232. Tenma ignites his gauntlet again, burning through wave after wave without hesitation. An endless tornado of locusts closes in around him, pushing his mana reserves to the limit. Tenma considers retreating outside to let his skill analysis finish safely. He immediately shuts down that thought, refusing to run away like a third-rate fighter. Tenma powers up his gauntlet with determined eyes, ready to drain his last drop of mana. A fiery lotus eruption detonates across the entire field, vaporizing the central horde. Tenma drops to one knee, completely exhausted now that his mana is gone. The bugs keep coming back, but his analysis bar finally climbs up to 91%. Analysis hits 100%, granting him mana detection level 1 to recover mana whenever he senses enemies. The new skill heals his wounds, raises his stats, and lets him scan the stage radar for the boss. A top-down sonar wave pulses across the grid, tracking every magical signature in the area. The radar pinpoints the queen locust hiding deep behind thousands of bodyguard bugs. Tenma locks his eye onto the exact target coordinates. He raises his hand, channeling a cyan aura into a long-range projectile. Tenma scoffs at the queen for trying to hide behind her own children. True Sphere pierces through the bodyguard wall, catching the queen completely off guard. Tenma closes the gap in a flash of lightning, swooping in with his ice gauntlet ready. He smirks, declaring checkmate before delivering the final strike. Tenma severs the queen locust's head, spraying green blood across the field. Without their queen to command them, the remaining swarm collapses into total chaos. Tenma unleashes one last Lotus Blast to mop up the remaining bugs for extra stats. He hits the exit portal, logging a clear time of 17 minutes and 7 seconds. Tenma smiles, thinking Ageha is probably outside acting all cold and worried about him. He steps through the exit gate with a wave, starting to apologize for taking so long. A lethal strike flashes out of nowhere, ambushing Tenma the second he leaves the dungeon. Wolf Dog Charles brags about how Ageha Izumi refused to talk even after being beaten. Charles mocks Itsuki as a level 0 rookie who is way out of his depth. The system identifies the rank B Shikigami Death Hound and starts its analysis. Itsuki instantly figures out he is fighting a Shikigami user. Charles notices how fast Itsuki moves, but figures holding Ageha hostage keeps him in total control. Itsuki gets worried seeing Ageha getting choked right in front of him. Death Hound lunges for a bite, but Itsuki holds his ground and blocks the attack. Charles boasts that the Hound's bite force easily crushes lower defense stats. Itsuki counters hard and drives the beast straight back. He lands a heavy blow, knocking Death Hound out cold for a second. Charles thinks Itsuki is naive for dropping his guard, while the system analysis ticks past 77%. Charles sneers, convinced this rookie has no idea how Shikigami users actually fight. Death Hound instantly revives behind Itsuki and lunges for a surprise strike. Itsuki expects the trick and uses magic detection to push the analysis to 90%. With progress hitting 95%, Itsuki actively suppresses the Blue Lotus effect so Charles does not catch on. Panicking, Charles tightens his grip on Ageha's neck and threatens to kill her. The analysis finishes, granting Itsuki a skill that lets him steal lower-rank Shikigami. Itsuki readies his hand as the monster charges back in. He reaches straight for the beast, declaring he is taking ownership of it. He slams his palm on Death Hound, wrapping the monster in glowing light. Itsuki kicks the Hound back while rewriting its contract on the spot. Charles yells at the Hound, completely unaware that he just lost control. He threatens to snap Ageha's neck if Itsuki takes another step. Bleeding, Ageha weakly tells Itsuki not to worry about her. Itsuki throws his hands up in mock surrender to play along. He calmly asks Charles why he was sent to attack him in the first place. Learning Ryoji Kinoshita ordered the hit, Itsuki resolves to deal with Ryoji directly. Charles points at Itsuki and orders Death Hound to tear his legs off. Instead, Death Hound turns around with a glowing Blue Lotus emblem on its forehead and bites Charles. The Hound pins Charles down, forcing him to drop Ageha. Charles screams in pain, completely baffled as to why his own suman is attacking him. Death Hound sits loyally next to Itsuki like a trained pet. Itsuki coldly vows to make Charles pay back every bit of suffering Ageha went through. Charles begs for mercy, throwing Ryoji under the bus and offering to set a trap for him. Itsuki pretends to agree with the idea. Thinking Itsuki let his guard down, Charles smirks and pulls out a hidden weapon. Charles lunges forward to stab him. Itsuki glances over with pure coldness, anticipating the attack before it even starts. He gives Death Hound the order to tear Charles apart. Charles breaks down crying in pure terror as he realizes he is done for. Death Hound towers over Charles with glowing eyes and razor-sharp teeth. Charles screams frantically, begging his former suman to remember who raised it. Death Hound devours Charles whole, while Itsuki carries the injured Ageha and calls out to an unseen stalker. Itsuki stares into the shadows, demanding the hidden watcher step out and show themselves. Carrying injured officer Ageha Izumi through the wheat field, Itsuki senses someone following them and turns back. Itsuki asks if the stranger is another assassin sent by the guy he just killed. The guy freaks out and raises his hands to prove he is not an enemy before Itsuki attacks. Not wanting to waste time talking, Itsuki turns to walk away and orders Death Hound to catch up after eating. Watching the monster beast obey Itsuki without hesitation, Iberia realizes this guy might be his ticket out. Iberia runs up to introduce himself, asking for Itsuki's name while praising his combat skills. Remembering his father's advice, Iberia realizes standard bribes like cash or weapons will not work on someone like Itsuki. Iberia punches his hand in realization, as an idea hits him for what Itsuki actually needs right now. Iberia pulls out a glowing magic healing bandage, claiming it can stabilize Izumi's condition. Hearing there is a way to save Izumi's life, Itsuki stops and turns to take him seriously. Iberia explains the rare tool is made from Shadow Clan bandages and Kodama skin to treat severe injuries. Iberia breaks down how awakened tools function, since standard weapons fail against disaster beasts. The system categorizes equipment into 4 distinct tiers, ranging from basic normal gear all the way up to unique. Unique tier items offer powerful stats and rare effects, like granting limitless mana usage. Iberia boasts that out of the rare unique items existing across the continents, his father crafted 3 of them. His father is none other than the legendary Crafter King of the northern continent. Iberia gets annoyed when he notices Itsuki is completely ignoring his speech. Itsuki spots Charles' dropped hunter's crossbow tool on the ground and picks it up. The crossbow links directly into Itsuki's inventory, and Itsuki thanks Iberia for saving Izumi. Iberia realizes they are both targeting Reiji Kinoshita, giving them a common goal. Iberia asks Itsuki to team up with him for the Savior Alliance preliminaries in North District 4. He explains Reiji is monopolizing stages in North District 4 to secure his spot in the top 10. Itsuki asks why he is fixated on winning this year, making Iberia pause before opening up. Iberia recalls growing up dreaming of fighting disaster beasts using equipment forged by his father. His father refused to make him gear back then, stating only true saviors are worthy of wielding his work. Iberia vows to win the preliminaries, so his father will finally acknowledge him and forge his gear. Iberia admits his father strictly forbade him from using his family name to recruit strong carry partners. To make matters worse, Reiji has already bought off almost every strong participant in the district. Iberia searched until hearing about Itsuki defeating King Fang Mo and breaking a stage record. Itsuki agrees to team up under the name Double E, as long as they bring Izumi to a hospital first. Meanwhile, Take practices his striking form during an intense solo training session. Seiya sneezes during training, assuming Itsuki must be talking about her behind her back. Take teases a blushing Seiya, asking why she did not just go see Itsuki after the battle. Their combat instructor suddenly ambushes Take from behind while his guard is down. Take blocks the strike and complains, but the instructor reminds him real combat never gives warnings. Seiya powers up her water magic, eager to test her skills in the upcoming preliminaries. The system confirms Seiya at level 11 and Take at level 10 as they prepare for North District 4. Over at Kinoshita's office, a briefcase opens to reveal glowing tool stones. Reiji wonders why Wolf Dog Charles is late, unaware his tracker was already killed. Reiji absorbs a tool stone, converting the raw energy straight into experience points. His assistant reports that 887 out of 3,113 participants were successfully bribed to throw their matches. Reiji absorbs his final tool stone, triggering a surge of power as his experience maxes out. Reaching level 12, Reiji sneers at the commoner participants who stand no chance against his rigged tournament. Tenma arrives at headquarters, surrounded by swirling energy as he meets with General Commander Nento. Nento offers to personally handle anyone threatening the alliance or standing in Tenma's way. Tenma politely declines, asking to settle his own battles himself. Iberia silently fanboys over Nento, realizing the legendary commander was actually Tenma's teacher all along. Tenma confirms he and Iberia are officially teaming up for the national tournament preliminaries. Ageha assures everyone she is feeling much better, thanks to her Shikigami and Iberia's rare healing item. Nento instantly recognizes the rare bandages, calling out Iberia as the son of the Crafter King. Iberia puffs up with pride, determined to live up to his legendary father's reputation. Nento thanks Iberia for saving Ageha and dismisses the boys to go prepare for tomorrow's matches. Iberia boldly promises that their team will easily crush the preliminary stage. Once the boys leave, Nento sits beside Ageha's bed to speak privately about Tenma. He explains that Tenma carries a reckless urge from childhood trauma, so Ageha needs to stay by his side as a friend he wants to protect. Ageha takes Nento's words to heart, accepting her role in keeping Tenma grounded. Nento warns that traitors are aligned with disaster beasts, making humanity's future look darker than ever. Dawn breaks over the region as tournament day finally arrives. Competitors gather outside the massive North Zone for preliminary arena. The crowd swells to nearly 5,000 participants once word spreads that Nento is watching. Ryoji Kinoshita scoffs at the late entries, confident his massive bribe network gives him complete control. Ryoji's faction members put on red armbands so they can easily spot each other and manipulate the field. Host Suryu Fujiwara takes the stage to lay out the opening ground rules. Contestants panic after learning thousands will be eliminated in the very first run. Iberia points out Ryoji standing in the crowd, calling him out to Tenma. Ryoji commands his hired goons to block and tackle anyone attempting to run past him. Iberia whispers a plan to sprint straight to the inner zone and catch Ryoji off guard. One of Ryoji's goons overhears them right as the horn sounds to start stage 1. Up in the VIP box, officials wonder if any new prodigies will match past legends. Nento confirms that he has indeed brought a second pupil to this year's tournament. The spectating officials start eagerly scanning the list to guess who Nento trained. They review high-level elemental users like Take and Seiya, assuming one of them must be the prodigy. They even check out Habin Hana, the highest-level competitor in the arena at level 16. Nento stays completely silent, dropping a hint that none of those top prospects are his student. The judges notice a level 0 entry on the roster, assuming it is just another clueless tourist. Down on the floor, Ryoji's henchmen surround Tenma and laugh at his level 0 tag. Tenma stands unfazed, eye glowing as he readies his wrist gear. The lead goon suddenly stops cold, recognizing that Tenma is wearing Charles's stolen gear. He snaps in anger, refusing to believe a level 0 commoner took down their tracker. The lead attacker signals his group to swarm Tenma all at once. Tenma steps forward calmly, telling them he does not have time to waste on weaklings. 5 armed goons close ranks, surrounding Tenma from every angle. Iberia watches nervously, worried that even Tenma cannot handle 5 opponents simultaneously. He reaches into his bag, preparing to throw in a secret item to back Tenma up. The goons rush in, taunting Tenma for thinking he can stand against them. Tenma looks down with a cold expression and gives them one final warning. The lead attacker laughs hysterically, thinking Tenma is bluffing. He reaches out to grab Tenma's head, boasting that he will end this instantly. Tenma counters with a strike that caves in the goon's face before anyone can react. Standing coolly over his crumpled opponent, Tenma repeats his order for the rest to move. The masked fire user unleashes his full-power flamethrower, trying to incinerate Tenma in one hit. Flames completely engulf the battlefield, making everyone think Tenma was turned into ash. The crowd freaks out at the overkill, assuming another rookie just died in the preliminaries. Before the attackers can celebrate, dark ice starts rising straight out of the fire. Tenma stands inside his black ice wall without a single scratch, leaving the attackers completely stunned. Looking totally unbothered, Tenma coldly tells them to back off while checking his system stats. The fire user loses his mind, trying to figure out how a supposed level 0 is throwing around ice magic. Tenma baiting him into attacking again, promising he won't even block this time so he can test his passive mechanics. The guy takes the bait and fires an even stronger overheat blast right at him. The attacker collapses from exhaustion, sure that an attack matching a level 8 must have finished Tenma off. As the smoke clears, the guy gasps in total horror. Tenma confirms his theory that the passive defense buff doesn't stack twice from the exact same skill and target. With testing done for round 1, Tenma steps forward to wrap things up. The fire user collapses, but his heavy muscular partner steps in with flaming fists, thinking he found Tenma's weakness. The heavy thug fires off a B-rank fire volley to overwhelm him. Tenma casually throws up another black ice wall to block the incoming barrage. Fireballs detonate harmlessly against the dark ice barrier. The goons assume they can just drain his mana pool until he runs out of ice defense. Instead, Tenma instantly blitzes right in front of the heavy guy's face with a crystal ice gauntlet. Tenma calculates that taking a full volley from a new target still only triggers the defense buff once. With his green eyes glowing under his ice armor, Tenma mocks the guy's weak punch. He slams the giant thug into the dirt, taking him out in a single move. Two lightning users see their muscle wiped out and try to run, but Tenma targets them to test his thunderclap wave. Tenma glares with a glowing cyan eye, warning them that running away isn't an option. They panic and throw a lightning skill, which Tenma absorbs directly to stack his agility stats. Iberia watches in total shock, as Tenma casually destroys examinees way higher level than himself. Wrapped in electric aura, Tenma verifies that his lightning passive follows the exact same one-stack rule per target. Iberia stands over the defeated field, realizing he barely had to do anything. The defeated fire user screams on the ground, refusing to believe a level 0 is doing this to them. Iberia steps up smugly behind Tenma, ready to deliver a grandiose speech. He proudly declares they are Double E, the duo that will rule the continent. Tenma completely ignores him and starts walking off to hunt down Ryuji Kinoshita. Even the knocked-out examinee deadpans at how terrible that team name sounds. Meanwhile, Ryuji Kinoshita is speeding through the stage, blasting examinees with purple energy to keep his path clear. A speed-type candidate gets sniped out of nowhere while sprinting at full speed. Kinoshita stands arrogantly in his electric aura, adjusting his glasses after trampling everyone in his way. He barks at his hired goons to hurry up so he can save his stamina for stage 2. Bystander examinees watch in disgust at how corrupt and arrogant the administrator's son is. Kinoshita smirks, satisfied that his paid mercenaries did all the dirty work for him. Reaching the massive blue gate of the inner area, Kinoshita celebrates how ridiculously easy this exam was. A thunderous shout of his name echoes through the sky, stopping him in his tracks. His henchmen point behind them in terror as they spot Tenma walking up. Tenma and Iberia step out from the mist, confronting Kinoshita right at the gate. The surrounding crowd goes wild, unable to believe the level 0 actually made it through. Kinoshita sneers, convincing himself that Tenma must have just bribed his way through the attackers. Iberia admits Tenma basically carried him here by instantly flatlining every single enemy on the path. Losing his temper, Kinoshita orders his entire syndicate mob to crush Tenma. Dozens of hired thugs close in, mocking Tenma for stepping up to the administrator's son. Iberia panics as he counts over 100 armed examinees surrounding them. Tenma calmly tells Iberia to hold onto his head. Before anyone can react, Tenma vanishes in a high-speed blur. Kinoshita gets yanked backward, his arrogant smile disappearing instantly. Tenma appears right behind Kinoshita, holding him tight while looking down with cold eyes. In the falling rain, Tenma whispers into Kinoshita's ear that he needs to rephrase his warning. With terrifying killing intent, Tenma locks down the area, declaring that no one is leaving until things are settled. Pink-haired female classmate and glasses male classmate make it into the internal area, placing 4th and 5th while complaining about the red ribbon goons. Meanwhile, the upper leaderboards show powerhouse examinees Gaku-O in 3rd place and Shinakagami taking 2nd. And sitting at the top in 1st place is level 16 top-tier contestant Kana Hanyu. While worrying that Tenma Itsuki might be getting targeted by the red ribbons, they spot someone flying toward the arena. Turns out it is Iberia, landing in 6th place right behind the top rankers. Iberia drops in screaming Itsuki's name, desperate for backup. Recognizing the name, Itsuki's classmates turn around and spot a familiar figure standing right behind them. Itsuki stands his ground, telling Ryuji Kinoshita that nobody is leaving until their score is settled. General Commander Nento watches from the control room, shocked by Itsuki's speed and ordering Heitensho to step in if things get ugly. Kinoshita scoffs, declaring that this is not going to be a fair fight, but a 100 against 1 mass execution. With avenging Ageha as his main priority, Itsuki stays cold as Kinoshita orders his entire mob to rush him at once. A wall of elemental magic and weapons surges toward Itsuki as the mob closes in. One attacker charges ahead with a fire punch skill, greedy to grab the kill first. Itsuki effortlessly catches the fiery fist bare-handed. He immediately slams the guy straight into the dirt. The mob freaks out over the instant knockout, but they rally their numbers to swarm him together. Deciding to wrap things up fast, Itsuki triggers Lotus Explosion. A massive fiery shockwave detonates across the battlefield. Iberia and the others watch in absolute disbelief as the explosion clears. Kana Hanyu casually watches the giant blast, unimpressed by the spectacle. Holding back at 30% output so he does not kill anyone, Itsuki walks out of the flames unharmed. Itsuki turns his glowing eyes toward Kinoshita, letting him know he is the only one left standing. Terrified that his entire mob was wiped out in seconds, Kinoshita screams at him in panic. Boasting about his wealthy family's unlimited resource stones, Kinoshita refuses to lose to a commoner. Kinoshita fires a B-rank purple lightning cannon, but Itsuki dodges the blast at high speed, triggering his system mimesis. Realizing he cannot win on his own, Kinoshita frantically calls out for his bodyguard, 40. 40 breaks the rules and lunges into the arena to protect his master. Kinoshita taunts that his level 35 bodyguard will tear Itsuki to pieces. Itsuki's magic detection picks up high-speed targets crashing into the fight. Before 40 can attack, Heitensho slams down from the sky and pins the bodyguard to the ground. Heitensho smirks from on top of the pinned guard, telling Itsuki to keep going. With his bodyguard taken out of the picture, Itsuki steps up to Kinoshita while sparking with lightning aura. Kinoshita breaks down completely, trying to use his father's corrupt political power to threaten him. Itsuki knocks him out cold, leaving him flat on his back in the rain. Watching from the control center, Nento's aide notes that Itsuki actually defeated Kinoshita, while Nento wonders why Itsuki is staring straight at them. Itsuki intentionally pauses his skill analysis at 99%, so he can use the completion to refresh his stamina in Phase 2. Pink-haired female classmate runs up to greet him as he enters the inner gate. Itsuki tells her to get inside before she catches a cold in the rain. Itsuki officially ranks 7th overall in arrival time, and Iberia tackles him in a tearful hug. Glass's male classmate glares at Iberia, asking who he is and why he is crying on Itsuki. Iberia proudly introduces himself as Itsuki's partner, leaving the classmates shocked that Itsuki made a friend. They start bickering about whether Itsuki replaced them, and ask what their team name is supposed to be. When Iberia proudly announces their team name is E, Glass's male classmate bursts out laughing at how lame it sounds. The system announces that 500 candidates have made it, broadcasting that Phase 2 will force everyone to fight a calamity spirit beast completely alone. Heitensho grins, excited for the chance to finally go all out in solo combat. As everyone files into the gloomy arena for the second stage, people immediately start whispering about Tenma still being level 0. Up in the control room, General Commander Nento and his team get ready to monitor the entire trial ground from above. The massive arena gates lock in place as the second stage gets officially underway. Other examinees start mocking Tenma, convinced he only got carried this far and will crumble in a solo match. Tenma completely ignores the trash talk and calmly asks the proctors if Nightmare Class is the highest difficulty available. The examinees scoff even harder, claiming a level 0 like him won't even make it past the beginner beasts. The proctor announces that all points earned here carry directly into the main national tournament. That news snaps everyone to attention, including Augutake and Seiya, realizing how high the stakes just got. Shadows pool together in the dark arena as glowing red eyes start locking onto Tenma. 10 level 1 Calamity Hounds spawn right in front of him, giving him his first warm-up wave. Tenma pops Black Ice Wall, deciding to clear these weak mobs quickly since they won't give him useful stats. Over in the command hub, the proctors decide Tenma is way too interesting to look away from. The monitors flash as the pack of hounds lunges straight for Tenma all at once. A single flash cuts through the dark, wiping out all 10 hounds in literally 1 second. The proctors stare in disbelief, since clearing a wave like that normally takes ordinary examinees several minutes. Next up, a level 8 salamander spawns right in front of Tenma. The officials assume fighting something 8 levels higher is going to force Tenma to struggle. They switch to the multi-screen feed to see how the other top participants are handling their matches. Across the other sectors, examinees like Habin Hana are busy slinging elemental magic to clear their own spawns. The proctors note that Hana is basically the only participant keeping pace, with Tenma's ridiculous clear speed. Suddenly, Nento's aide panics when she checks Tenma's monitor. The salamander lets out a massive blast of fire, completely swallowing Tenma in the inferno. An official panics and calls for the medical team, but General Commander Nento steps in and tells him to wait. Inside the wall of flames, Tenma stands completely untouched, coated in his crystalline black ice armor. He slices clean through the salamander before the fire even fades. The salamander falls in 5 seconds flat, netting Tenma another 500 points. The command hub notes that the difficulty is stepping up to test everyone's speed and instincts. A level 10 hard-class electric rhino materializes, charging up its glowing horn with high-voltage lightning. The proctors explain that taking a direct hit from that horn will either impale someone or paralyze them instantly. The official yells in shock as Tenma steps straight into the path of the charging beast instead of dodging. Tenma casually reaches out and grabs the rhino's crackling horn head-on. The electric rhino slams its horn straight into Tenma with full force. Surges of electric energy blast all around Tenma as he tanks the direct hit. Nento's aide screams out his name, completely horrified by what looks like a suicidal move. The system confirms Tenma absorbed the C-rank lightning hit to boost his agility, proving anything level 10 or below can't touch him. He pops Thunder Wave for a massive speed buff and bursts forward like a bolt of blue lightning. Tenma lands right on top of the defeated rhino, finishing the fight in 7 seconds. The control room goes quiet, realizing his total combat time for 3 waves is under 15 seconds. Suddenly, an enormous maw lined with razor-sharp teeth appears, spitting heavy iron chains. The proctor explains that this armored nightmare-class boss is meant to be the ultimate wall for all examinees. The level 15 purgatory giant fully materializes as the final challenge of the stage. Without skipping a beat, Tenma fires a beam of pure dark energy right through the giant's chest. Tenma lowers his hand as the system confirms the purgatory giant is dead, boosting his projectile speed by 200%. General Commander Nento and his staff stand there with their mouths wide open in complete shock. Tenma turns around like it was nothing, having vaporized the hardest boss in the exam in just 3 seconds. A calamity beast lunges forward, blasting energy right across the training ground. Seiya Kisaragi pushes her conquest progress to 80%, determined to reach normal class first without taking a single break. Meanwhile, Habin Hana plans to recharge her magic before moving forward, only for a system alert to reveal someone already cleared the nightmare class in just 21 seconds. Standing over the vaporized monster with his black orb hovering nearby, Tenma Itsuki casually asks if it is time for the next round. Up in the observation room, General Commander Nento and take watch in total disbelief that a level 15 purgatory giant was obliterated so fast. The floor splits open as the system double spawns 2 level 15 purgatory giants for Phase 2. Tenma notices one giant roaring and decides to take it out before it can even finish its battle cry. Take points out that despite the orb's high damage, its flight speed has a major flaw against high-agility monsters. Tenma charges up penetrating true sphere right in front of his face. The purgatory giant lunges at him, using its raw physical stats since its race cannot cast magic. The dark orb streaks forward, leaving a trail of purple energy in its wake. The giant dodges the projectile, proving takes point that the orb's flight speed is too slow for long-range snipes. The monster retaliates with a massive fist strike aimed directly at Tenma. Tenma effortlessly leaps backward through the dust, realizing these giants can evade medium-range attacks. Instead of backing off, Tenma smirks as blue lightning crackles across his face. He triggers Thunderclap Wave to boost his agility, dodging right under the giant's swing. Take realizes that high damage means nothing if the hit misses, but Tenma is already closing the gap. The giant slams its heavy fist into the ground, smashing the stone floor into pieces. The monster turns its head in surprise as Tenma calls out right behind it. Tenma fires, penetrating true sphere point-blank straight into the giant's torso. The dark energy rips through the monster's chest armor, shattering its chains in midair. The purgatory giant collapses backward as its body disintegrates into dark energy. The system confirms the kill, boosting his true sphere flight speed all the way to 13 meters per second. Back in the command center, Ageha Izumi stammers in embarrassment after passionately defending Tenma's survival instincts. She tries to cover her blushing face, insisting she was just worried about losing talented candidates for humanity's future. Nento and Take exchange a quiet look, pointing out how unusually talkative she has become. Ageha explains that when lightning runs through Tenma's body, his movement speed increases so much that no giant can touch him. Driven by his goal to surpass Kazunari Tsutsumi, Tenma refuses to rest and immediately triggers Phase 3 against 3 purgatory giants. Tenma launches a dark sphere right off the bat, taking out the first giant in an instant. Take notes that even for someone with top-tier physical strength, facing 3 level 15 giants at once is usually the absolute limit. A massive shockwave tears through the arena as Tenma accelerates between the remaining monsters. Using Thunderclap Wave to get right behind his target, Tenma vaporizes the second giant and pushes his projectile speed boost to 1700%. A beam of dark energy blasts through the dust cloud, cutting down the battlefield. The final purgatory giant glares back with glowing red eyes, realizing it is the last one standing. The giant steps out of the smoke, ready to give everything it has against Tenma. Tenma finishes off the purgatory giant with Lotus Explosion, causing a huge fiery blast. He touches down on the scorched arena floor, logging 15,000 points in just 13 seconds. Up in the control room, observers panic when they recognize the move that wiped out Phase 1 candidates. Tenma knows his mana is completely drained, but he relies on magic detection to restore it whenever enemies spawn. Phase 4 starts by spawning 4 level 15 purgatory giants at once, immediately triggering his passive mana restore. The observers note that no one besides Kazunari has ever managed to clear Phase 4 before. Tenma calculates that increasing his orb's flight speed also boosts its hit rate. He dashes across the battlefield, firing off dark spheres while conserving every bit of magic he has. Out of nowhere, one of the giants hurls heavy iron chains straight at him. The monster yanks the chains taut, yanking Tenma right toward it. It swings its massive arm around for a brutal follow-up strike. A giant stone fist slams down, pinning Tenma flat against the shattered ground. The sheer force of the impact crushes his body, dealing heavy physical damage. The giant lifts its hand, leaving a massive cloud of dust and debris over the crater. Tenma struggles to stand, heavily bruised with torn clothes and blood dripping from his wounds. Panicking over the damage, a control room official shouts to send in medical help immediately. Spectators watch in shock, wondering if Tenma has finally hit his absolute limit. Seeing Tenma battered on the ground reminds one of the observers of his own past failure. An officer rushes to stop the test, but someone commands him to wait. General Commander Izumi Nento steps forward, stating that Tenma still has not given up. Nento insists that Tenma is still holding back a hidden ace in the hole. When asked how he can be so sure, Nento simply points to the unyielding look in Tenma's eyes. Standing his ground, Tenma activates over mimesis to complete his skill copying. The skill analysis hits 100%, bursting into a brilliant blue lotus aura that shocks the control room. A massive surge of shockwave energy detonates outward, clearing the battlefield around him. Unlocking Thunder Breaker Level 2 fully heals his wounds, clears all debuffs, and boosts his total stats to 1320. With a 200% flight speed boost, Tenma fires high-speed piercing spheres right through the giants. He clears Phase 4 in 31 seconds, confident that no number of purgatory giants can stop him now. Beams of dark energy slice through the remaining monsters, tearing them apart in seconds. The entire observation deck stands completely speechless at the display. Tenma sits nonchalantly atop a mountain of slain giants and broken chains. Catching his breath, he looks around and wonders why the next wave is not spawning. An official presses the red emergency console button to manually shut down the trial. He speaks into the microphone, officially announcing that Tenma's test is over. The stage announcement confirms Tenma wiped out every single Inferno giant they had prepared. Tenma catches his breath, surprised since they claim there was no difficulty ceiling. He wonders how many points he scored and hopes the cap does not shrink his lead over Taewajin. With 11 giants down, his orb flight speed reaches 38 meters per second, faster than a speeding car. A strange surge of blue energy suddenly begins gathering right in front of him. Tenma flinches for a second, assuming another monster is spawning into the arena. Then he remembers his fixed-level rule and sighs in relief. Since he cannot absorb EXP, all monster drops instantly condense into a massive karma stone. In the control room, officials stare in awe as General Commander Izumi Nento explains why the crystal appeared. They realize that if Tenma ever joins a party, his teammate gets to hog every bit of dropped EXP. Tenma inspects the high-tier blue crystal, pleased with the unexpected extra payout. Satisfied with his gains, he decides it is time to wrap up the trial. The exit gate opens, signaling to everyone that Tenma has officially stepped out. The scoreboard locks in his ridiculous total of over 100,000 points in under 4 minutes. An eager official rushes up to praise his performance and offers to arrange a top-tier mentor for him. Tenma declines, but the official keeps pushing, insisting a genius needs proper connections. Rikyuru steps in from behind, warning the official to back off before he makes a fool of himself. Tenma recognizes Rikyuru as the one who handled Kinoshita's thugs earlier. Rikyuru smirks and drops the bomb that Tenma is actually Izumi Nento's personal disciple. The official almost chokes on his breath, completely stunned by the revelation. General Commander Nento steps forward and confirms the master-disciple relationship. The official bows in panic, realizing he just tried to recruit Nento's pupil. Nento commends Tenma's performance and offers to have Choha heal his wounds. Tenma reassures them he is just a little exhausted and only needs a short break. Nento notes that it makes sense for his student to clear every single beast in the second stage. Tenma asks if Taewajin reached Phase 6 during his exam, but Nento explains Phase 4 was the limit back then. Rikyuru tells him to sit back and relax while the rest of the candidates finish their trials. Meanwhile, Rikyuru collapses from exhaustion, capping out at hard class with 1,600 points. Kisaragi Seiya pushes her water sphere magic to the absolute limit against her target. An official reminds Tenma that clearing hard class easily guarantees a top 10 spot for most candidates. Tenma wonders why they have not exited yet, and the official explains participants must stay until stage completion. The monitors show another candidate managing to unlock the Nightmare class trial. Ugaku uses his rare karma tool to slam into an Inferno giant. Elsewhere, a female candidate commands her black cat Shikigami into battle. The pet morphs into a massive battle form right in front of the giant. She stands alongside her transformed creature, ready to engage the monster head-on. Her beast delivers a heavy strike, holding its own against the giant. Tenma asks Choha if her Shikigami can transform too, but she explains rare transforming types are full of mysteries. Seeing that, Tenma decides he should start pumping all his spare EXP into the Black Hound he stole from Charles. Since his friends have finished their runs, Tenma prepares to leave the viewing area. Suddenly, a surge of power on the monitor catches his attention. Iberia steps into battle wearing a striking suit of red armor. He reveals it is the strongest epic karma tool created by his father. The living armor clamps onto his body, fully equipping itself. System alerts show the dragon gear, boosting his stats every single minute. Iberia smirks inside the helmet, proud that he finally mastered the gear. He knows he has to finish the fight within 15 minutes to avoid the gear's drawback. With stat buffs stacking quickly, he rocket launches himself straight at the Inferno Giant. Determined not to drag Tenma down, Iberia pours everything into his attack. He strikes with full force, proud to represent the Double E duo. Watching from the monitors, Tenma smiles and gives his silent approval. With the second stage officially complete, officials step up to announce who advances. Candidates whisper among themselves, assuming Kana Hanyu easily locked up first place. The official steps forward to read out the official top 10 rankings. The leaderboard displays Tenma Itsuki in absolute first place with a mind-boggling score. The crowd goes wild, trying to comprehend how anyone could slay enough giants to cross 6 figures. Ugaku stares at the board in utter disbelief after dropping to third. Kana Hanyu grips her sword, eager for the chance to duel Tenma in the main event. Seiya looks at the huge gap between them, wondering if combat is even right for her. Choha glances at Nento, sensing how pleased the general commander is with his student. Nento stands tall, confident that humanity's future looks brighter than ever. Lying exhausted on the ground, Iberia laughs and takes pride in Tenma's win. He boasts that his own run brought plenty of honor to the Double E team name. Tenma walks over and genuinely praises Iberia for doing a great job. Iberia grins dizzyingly, completely satisfied with his effort. And so, the national tournament preliminaries come to a triumphant close. Meanwhile, far away in South Continent District 1, a different gathering takes place. An elderly man sits silently in deep meditation while guards stand watch. A soldier snaps at a restless guard, warning him to respect the prophet. This old man is Commander-in-Chief Balger, renowned across the continent for his visions. The guard mutters that foresight is useless if it only triggers after barriers drop. His superior explains that even with a 10% accuracy rate, Balger's visions save lives. Suddenly, Commander Balger reaches out as a terrifying vision strikes his mind. He gasps for air and desperately warns that the North Continent is in grave danger. He foresees an incoming assault led by disaster beasts whose levels exceed 100. Balger's eyes widen in sheer terror as the dark future unfolds before him. Night falls outside, setting a quiet backdrop before the team gathers. Tenma checks his status window and sees his total stats have officially crossed 1,500, making him as strong as a level 30 awakened despite still being level 0. He realizes that while agility and defense scale infinitely with passive skills, boosting pure attack power is a trickier puzzle. He ponders if Overmimesis can help him copy an attack-boosting skill next, but his train of thought gets cut short. Someone yells out that dinner is on the table, snapping Tenma back to reality. Rikuru calls out from the dining room, letting him know he made a huge feast with all his favorite dishes. Tenma figures he can worry about his stats later and decides to go eat. The table is packed with an insane spread, bringing everyone together after the intense trials. Meanwhile, the squad notices someone is still missing from the feast. Over in the medical wing, Iberia is fast asleep, fully healed after his grueling dungeon run. Choha is still amazed that a level 7 like him managed to clear a nightmare-class trial that stopped higher-level fighters in their tracks. Back at the table, Seiya suddenly freezes and gasps in shock. She points trembling hands right behind Rikyuru's chair. Rikyuru turns around, completely clueless about whatever is lurking behind him. A shadowy, drooling demon silhouette with a glowing red eye looms in the dark. Rikyuru nearly jumps out of his skin as the monster turns out to be a starving Iberia hunting for food. Iberia steals Rikyuru's seat and starts shoving bread and chicken drumsticks into his mouth like a man possessed. He slams down an empty bowl after inhaling the meal in seconds. He looks up with pure joy, declaring the food absolute perfection. Rikyuru beams with pride over his cooking, but Iberia takes it a step further. Iberia tells him he should quit being an awakened entirely and open a restaurant, leaving Rikyuru unsure if he should be flattered. General Commander Nento sits at the end of the table, his stern presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. The room falls quiet as Nento asks the young prospective saviors a serious question. What is the thing they fear most? Rikyuru admits he fears growing old, losing his stamina, and worst of all, losing his sense of taste so he can't enjoy good food. He shudders in comedic terror, just imagining becoming a frail old man. Nento turns his attention to Seiya, asking her to share her vulnerability. Seiya remembers growing up in a hospital family, constantly watching emergency stretchers rush past with dying patients. That childhood trauma left her terrified of sickness, making even a tiny cold send her into a panic. Her deep-seated fear explains why she overreacts to even the smallest health scare. Nento reassures her that awakened live twice as long as normal humans and almost never get sick, telling her she can put that fear behind her. Iberia realizes it's his turn to speak under Nento's gaze. Iberia grins and admits his biggest fear was failing the trials and not being strong enough to stand by Tenma's side. The group wonders what someone as absurdly strong as Tenma could possibly fear. Tenma grows quiet and admits that after his parents passed away, he lost all direction and was consumed by overwhelming anxiety. He recalls being a child curled up in a pitch-black void, feeling completely isolated from the world. He remembers the exact moment Seiya and Rikyuru reached out to him in his darkness and told him to look up at the sky. Their warmth pulled him out of the abyss and showed him he didn't have to carry his grief alone. A single tear streams down Tenma's face as he reflects on those memories. He looks around at Choha, Iberia, and the rest of his companions. He realizes his circle has kept growing and that he now has a real family again. Looking at their happy faces, he admits there are times he desperately wishes these peaceful days could last forever. He answers Nento's question directly. The thing he feared most in this world was living alone. The group notices how calm and gentle Tenma's aura feels now, completely free of his usual dark intensity. Iberia gets overly dramatic and promises he'll never leave Tenma's side, forcing Tenma to clarify he didn't mean it like that. Nento grounds the moment, reminding them all that facing their fears and dying without regrets is the ultimate goal of a true savior. Seiya and the others nod in solemn agreement, promising to take his wisdom to heart. The next morning, the group gathers outside to wave goodbye as Rikyuru and Seiya head back to their district. Tenma teases Iberia, asking him when he and Rikyuru got so tearfully close. As their friends leave, Tenma suggests going back inside, remembering there was something he wanted to ask Seiya. Before they can take a step, Tenma's eyes widen as a disturbance catches his attention. Choha comes sprinting across the courtyard in a desperate panic. Nento asks what happened as an out-of-breath Choha skids to a halt. Nento demands to know what emergency could warrant such a scene. Choha hesitates because of high security clearance, but Nento tells her Tenma and Iberia are trusted and orders her to report. Choha drops a bombshell. South Continent's prophet Elder Balger issued a dire vision that a massive disaster beast invasion will hit the North Continent within 3 days. The news shocks everyone. Knowing Balger's foresight accuracy makes this an unavoidable crisis. Choha begs her father, Commander Nento, to evacuate the North Continent immediately before the attack lands. Nento analyzes the threat, realizing the incoming monsters are likely targeting him as the North's supreme leader. Tenma agrees with Choha's concerns and immediately offers to stay and fight by Nento's side if they are short on power. Nento refuses to flee and instead assigns Tenma a completely different task, ignoring Tenma's protests that protecting him should be top priority. Nento orders Tenma and Iberia to fall back and guard crafter Aiden instead, promising backup forces will cover the main assault. Tenma and Iberia exchange a suspicious look, realizing Nento is deliberately sending Tenma away to protect him from the deadliest battlefield. Nento stands resolute in silence, fully prepared to act as bait and face the catastrophic 3-day invasion head-on. Blue-haired female officer informs Izumi Nento that all preparations are set and backup forces will be arriving shortly. Nento asks if she is worried about Aiden, even though he already has elite guards posted around him. She blushes, admitting that Nento always sees right through her thoughts. Nento explains that Tenma lacks raw attack power, and rumors say Aiden holds an artifact that can fix that weakness. If Tenma secures that artifact, he will complete his stats and become a perfect awakener. Right at 8 in the evening, stone monuments fall across the northern continent. Meanwhile, Tenma and Iberia run along a road, still 100 kilometers away from their destination. Iberia urges them to hurry so they can reach his father before any monster attacks. Suddenly, Iberia stops and points up into the sky. Tenma turns around and sees something crashing down nearby. A massive stone monument slams straight into the middle of the city. As an explosion lights up the skyline, Tenma worries that civilians haven't finished evacuating. Panic breaks out in the streets as citizens realize the invasion prophecy is coming true. A massive barrier activates around the sector, trapping everyone inside. Tenma worries Iberia might be exhausted, but Iberia begs him to help the trapped people. Tenma agrees to a change of plans, deciding to clear out the local threat first. Inside the city, a level 21 flame golem appears and lets out a massive roar. Local defenders deploy rock shields to hold the line against the beast. The flame golem completely shatters their frontline defense with one strike. Their main tank takes the brunt of the blow and collapses against a wall. Seeing their strongest defender fall instantly, the rest of the squad panics and flees. The flame golem instantly cuts off one of the fleeing awakeners from behind. Desperate to survive, the awakener fires a water cannon right at the monster. Steam covers the area as the surrounding defenders pause, wondering if the attack worked. The flame golem reignites, bursting back to life with intense flames. Tenma leaps right into the middle of the fire blast, taking center stage. He casts black ice wall to block the fire wave, telling Iberia to focus on evacuating civilians. Tenma recalls Nento's warning that penetrating true sphere is too slow and must be saved as a trump card. Instead of using his main skill, Tenma charges forward with lightning speed to overpower the monster directly. He drives an electric strike straight into the flame golem's face. The force of the blow sends the massive creature flying through the air. Tenma leaps up and slams the golem into the ground, destroying it entirely. Watching from a distance, the local awakeners cope by claiming the monster was already weakened. Their leader stands stunned, realizing a level 21 disaster beast couldn't even put up a fight. As Tenma keeps running with Iberia, he checks his stat increases and resolves to boost his attack power next. Iberia mentions his father's warehouse is packed with tools that can boost attack power. Seeing how slow Iberia is moving, Itsuki decides to take matters into his own hands. He grabs Iberia under his arm and dashes ahead. Itsuki sprints at extreme speed through the night, while Iberia hangs on for dear life. By 11 o'clock that night, they reach a quiet wooden workshop deep in the forest. Iberia collapses onto the ground, completely exhausted from the wild ride. Itsuki asks why anyone would live out here, and Iberia warns him that the perimeter is full of hidden traps. Iberia proudly offers to lead the way, claiming he knows exactly how to avoid them. Then he immediately steps straight onto a hidden floor trigger. Iberia panics as he realizes he triggered one of his father's worst defense mechanisms. Intense mana surges from underground, forcing both of them into a defensive stance. A massive epic iron golem rises from the dirt to crush the intruders. The golem immediately swings a giant stone fist straight down at Iberia. Itsuki dodges the blows and realizes he cannot destroy the golem since it belongs to Iberia's father, so he aims for the core in its chest instead. He triggers Thunderclap Wave, using his superior speed to close the gap. Itsuki weaves right past the giant arms in a lightning blur. He reaches in and pulls the glowing green power core right out of its chest. Without its energy source, the iron golem freezes instantly in place. Itsuki holds up the core, thinking the fight is over. Out of nowhere, Iberia shouts for someone named Yusuke to hold back. A heavily armored warrior swings a massive broadsword straight at Itsuki, who cleanly sidesteps the attack. Bokuto Yusuke stops his blade, mistaking them for common bandits. Iberia steps in to introduce Itsuki as his friend and asks where his father is. Yusuke points behind them, warning that the master is approaching in a terrible mood. The Crafter King steps out with a dark, furious look across his face. Unaware of the danger, Iberia happily boasts about passing the preliminary evaluations. He asks his father for a reward tool just as promised. Instead of a reward, the Crafter King slaps him across the face. Iberia clutches his swollen cheek in total shock. His father demands the dragon gear back, revealing that Iberia stole it without permission. He scolds Iberia, warning him that wearing the dragon gear for too long can cause permanent harm. Iberia hands the gear back in a huff, while his father turns his attention to Itsuki. Itsuki introduces himself as General Commander Izumi Nento's disciple, sent to escort him due to the prophesied disaster beast invasion. The Crafter King studies him closely, suddenly realizing that Itsuki's level is fixed at 0. The Crafter King eyes Itsuki suspiciously, asking if he is using some fake artifact to mask his real stats. As they walk, the Crafter King reveals Commander Nento actually arranged a specific item, trade in exchange for Itsuki guarding the workshop. He brings up a unique artifact called the Critical Crystal, which doubles attack power on critical hits with a 99% rate, but mentions it suffered a sudden crack. Handing over the broken critical crystal, he explains that its critical rate resets whenever a user levels up, making it useless for regular awakeners. Since Itsuki's level is fixed, he realizes this broken item gives him free stacking critical chance without ever resetting. Before they can finish, the Crafter King senses an anomaly and realizes monsters are targeting his hidden location. A sudden violent gust sweeps across the grounds, catching everyone off guard. Iberia panics as the shockwave knocks them back. A green barrier dome slams down over the area, trapping them completely. Itsuki steps forward and shouts for the others to get back as an advance wave of beasts approaches. He senses multiple high-speed signatures rushing straight toward the barrier. A swarm of level 14 one-horned demons bursts out of the tree line. Itsuki catches the leading demons strike bare-handed without flinching. He immediately activates Black Ice Wall, freezing and shattering the attacker on the spot. He shifts position to intercept the swarm, deliberately refraining from using Lotus Explosion, so the blast does not hit Aiden and Iberia behind him. Just as he clears the initial wave, a far stronger level 24 two-horned guardian beast emerges. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, reports confirm the first wave of low-level slaves has been sent into the human realm. The discussion turns to which Demon King should lead the main assault force. The ruler decides to deploy a demon general instead, fearing a Demon King's power would destroy the target eye left behind. A level 24 disaster beast smashes into the room, so Itsuki prepares to test his new broken critical crystal. He triggers Piercing Sphere, sending a beam shooting across the night sky. His critical rate bumps up by 1%, so he leaves Bokuto Yusuke to guard the area while he chases down the main threat. Electric aura surging, Itsuki sprints across the roof toward Iberia. Iberia is bleeding out on the ground, realizing he stands no chance without his dragon gear. As the beast moves in for the kill, Iberia screams for help until the Crafter King drops in to block the hit. Iberia can barely believe his non-combat dad is standing toe-to-toe with a disaster beast without flinching. The Crafter King pins the monster with his hammer so Itsuki can finish it off with a lightning strike. Itsuki catches his breath and apologizes for taking so long with the lookouts. Scanning the quiet compound, Itsuki confirms the immediate perimeter is finally clear. Bokuto offers to push forward, but Itsuki insists on taking down the green barrier himself. The Crafter King notices Itsuki has no fear, only pure hunger for battle. Bokuto warns that green barrier monsters are at least level 250, but Itsuki does not care. Itsuki just grins, excited that he can finally cut loose. Iberia tries to tag along, shouting that they are a team. The Crafter King snaps at his son, calling him dead weight and telling him Itsuki operates in a completely different realm. He warns Iberia that trailing behind will only drag Itsuki down and get him killed. He reminds Iberia that no one in their generation can stand on the same stage as Itsuki. He points out the terrifying look in Itsuki's eyes whenever he faces a disaster beast. Out in the woods, mana detection spots 5 beasts emerging from the barrier, instantly topping off Itsuki's mana. He triggers Lotus Blast, wiping out all 5 monsters in a giant explosion. He checks his reserves, knowing he burnt 80% of his mana, but vows to stop anything from reaching his friends. Back at the forge, Iberia watches the massive fireball light up the distant tree line. Bokuto instantly recognizes Itsuki's signature skill going off in the forest. Itsuki reaches the massive green barrier wall, analyzing its threat level. Looking at the glowing mark on his palm, he realizes this horde is just a massive pile of free experience. Glowing petals scatter as he summons his B-rank Shikigami, Death Hound. The giant wolf howls as its stats load in, ready to track every monster in the zone. Itsuki and Death Hound stand side by side at the edge of the barrier. With his eye glowing in the dark, Itsuki declares every single beast inside to be his prey. First-class savior Rei Okuma shows up to guard General Commander Nento, completely confident he can handle whatever's coming. Rei insists first-class saviors are just as capable as special-class ones, and that people are underestimating what he can do. Right on cue, a steel manifests in the sky, forcing Rei to draw his blade. Nento and Choha watch as the green barrier locks down the area, cutting off all outside communication. Rei locks in, determined to prove his rank isn't just for show. The green barrier completely seals off the perimeter from the outside world. Inside the dome, Tenma steps into the forest with Death Hound by his side. He fires off mana detection, spots 5 enemies, and commands Death Hound to stay back and clean up any stragglers. Surging with blue lightning, Tenma readies himself to charge ahead solo. The first wave of disaster beasts comes sprinting straight for him. Tenma throws up black ice wall, freezing the lead monsters in their tracks. He instantly closes the distance with lightning speed and cuts them down. Sweeping through the pack, he shreds multiple beasts at once. He drives Piercing Sphere directly into the core of the last beast in the group. The kill triggers a system prompt, bumping his critical rate up to 3%. Tenma approaches the glowing steel, figuring breaking it will drop the barrier. Before he can strike, he senses the 5th detected enemy lingering nearby. Black tendrils erupt from behind the steel, but Tenma leaps back just in time to dodge the ambush. Landing on his feet, he narrows his eyes as he analyzes the weird attack. Outside the fight, Iberia confides in Bokuto Yusuke, beating himself up for being dead weight. Bokuto tries to calm him down, reassuring him that Tenma's scale is just on a whole other level. Iberia admits he didn't even have the courage to step inside a green barrier. Bokuto explains that green barriers aren't just about higher monster levels, while gray barrier monsters are just mindless killing machines you can plan around. Green barriers house intelligent disaster beasts capable of actual strategy. Back inside, the ambusher steps out, a level 34 intelligent beast named Square General 336. Tenma's dark aura flares with excitement now that he's finally face to face with a talking monster. Square General 336 taunts him, calling him a level 0 coward who's shaking in fear. Tenma just smirks back, saying he's excited and wants to ask a quick question. His eyes glow terrifying red as he stares down the general and asks if its kind can feel pain. Square General 336 mocks Itsuki for thinking a human could hurt him, immediately lashing out with sharp feelers. Itsuki notices the monster's mana isn't dropping at all, it is actually expanding. Even as the feelers speed up, Itsuki dodges easily, though his lack of raw attack power keeps him from landing a decisive strike. The general dismisses his speed, brushing off Itsuki's strikes like annoying insect bites. He boasts that he can take 100 hits while Itsuki only needs to mess up once, but Itsuki lands a kick and glares back. Itsuki flips through the air and taunts the beast to give him everything it has. He realizes Overpowered isn't copying any skills because those feelers are physical limbs, forcing him to count his basic hit stacks instead. With his mana down to 97 and stamina draining fast, Itsuki realizes he has to gamble on an all-out offense. His broken critical crystal guarantees a 10 times damage boost on a critical hit, so he just needs to keep swinging until one lands. He pushes forward at full speed, diving right into the path of the incoming tendrils. Square General 336 pierces straight through Itsuki's torso, spraying blood everywhere. The monster laughs at him, calling him a fool for throwing his life away so recklessly. When Itsuki doesn't collapse, the general is shocked his defense is high enough to survive. Itsuki grins like a maniac with glowing red eyes, gathering energy into his fist as the setup finally pays off. The 100% critical hit triggers, letting Itsuki bury a 10 times counterpunch right into the boss's chest. The massive impact sends shockwaves tearing through the forest as Square General 336 screams in pain. Slumped against a tree, the boss can't comprehend how a level 0 human suddenly unleashed that kind of power. Itsuki stands over him, completely intoxicated by the rush and satisfaction of the critical strike. Even with blood pouring from his stomach wound, the adrenaline completely blocks out the pain. Itsuki grabs the beast's head, admitting he loves hearing an intelligent monster actually scream. He crushes the general's skull in a dark aura, while the monster curses him as a true demon. With the boss dead, the broken critical crystal updates his base critical rate to 4%. The moment the adrenaline wears off, the intense pain from his bleeding stomach finally hits him. Clutching his wound, Itsuki staggers over to the dungeon steel to wrap up the raid. He shatters the stone monument with a single quick punch. Before heading back out to meet Iberia, he decides to check on his summon first. He calls forth Death Hound, and a dark wolf shadow leaps down beside him. Death Hound steps into view with its glowing mark, clearly bigger than it was before. The system card shows Death Hound jumped 3 levels to level 19, banking 150 status points while growing in physical size. Looking up at the massive wolf towering over him, Itsuki can't wait to see how giant it gets after dozens more levels. The green barrier finally collapses, proving Itsuki actually pulled off the impossible. Itsuki is completely out of stamina and bleeding heavily, realizing his body is at its absolute limit. He leans on Death Hound, ordering it to follow his mana trail and lead him back to safety. Death Hound lets out a loud howl into the night sky to signal their location. Hearing the howl, Yusuk tells Iberia to get back inside, assuming another disaster beast is approaching. Yusuk readies his broadsword as a shadow leaps out from the trees. He swings his blade upward, preparing to cut down the incoming creature. Iberia yells for him to stop just in time, realizing it's Itsuki's Shikigami. Yusuk freezes in surprise, shocked to see the giant wolf up close. Iberia rushes over as Itsuki slides off Death Hound, covered in blood. Iberia panics and starts crying hysterically, thinking Itsuki is dead. Yusuk tells him to calm down, pointing out that Itsuki is still alive. He shows Iberia that Itsuki is breathing, but warns that he needs medical attention immediately. Iberia lifts Itsuki up as Yusuke asks if he has any Kodama bandages. While watching Itsuki rest, Iberia reflects on his class as a wind elementalist and vows to do what he can. His status screen reveals his Grade 2 gift, Heal Focus, which boosts wind healing recovery by 50%. He activates his power, surrounding himself in a bright green elemental aura. Green healing energy flows into Itsuki, stabilizing his condition as Iberia prays for his recovery. Meanwhile, near the Izumi residence, a new purple barrier drops, slamming an officer hard into a tree trunk. Ageha uses her healing magic on the officer, while a massive level 80 one-ox warrior looms over them. The injured guard tells General Commander Nento to run, but Nento refuses to back down. The ox warrior recognizes Nento's caged helmet and singles him out as the main target. The beast swings its heavy weapon down, causing a massive explosion as Ageha screams in horror. Nento stands unharmed inside the smoke, casually mentioning that backup took long enough. Special Class Savior Akira steps out with glowing red eyes, ready for battle. He apologizes for being late and takes over the fight. The ox warrior laughs and swings its giant fist, ignoring the officer's warning to Akira. Akira counters with a bare-handed strike, completely obliterating the giant monster in one hit. The surviving officer stares in utter shock at the insane display of power. Akira stands over the destroyed crater as Nento watches calmly. The officer realizes Special Class Saviors are monsters that defy standard logic. Akira warns everyone that the real fight is actually just beginning. The barrier shifts from purple to red as Demon King Ensho Kuma makes his entrance. A level 49 white Oni appears beside him, stating their main mission is to capture a specific target. Demon General Frostbite Wraith King explains that Ensho Kuma's red barrier will draw out strong human fighters as a distraction. They reveal that Lord Linga's magic eye is tracking the target's exact location, causing bedridden Itsuki to flinch. Itsuki lies sweating on the bed as the demonic magic homes in on him. He snaps his eyes open in shock, sensing that the enemy army is coming straight for him. Late on the first night of the prophecy, Itsuki lies unconscious on his bed, trapped in his own mind. In a vivid nightmare, young Itsuki brags to his mother about killing a beast that can feel pain. His mother looks down at him with worry and gently tells him to stop. She tries to teach him that living for vengeance isn't the right path. She reminds him that his strength should be used to protect the people he loves. Young Itsuki rejects her advice immediately, refusing to listen. His eyes turn blood red as he vows to wipe out every single disaster beast for what they did to his parents. His mother just looks at him with sadness, realizing she cannot change his mind. She softly bids him goodbye and begins floating away into the light. Itsuki reaches out in panic, desperate not to lose her again. She pleads with him one last time not to let hatred consume his life. He reaches into empty air as her spirit completely dissolves before his eyes. Left all alone in the void, tears stream down his face. Suddenly, a mocking voice breaks the silence, taunting him for crying over the dead. Itsuki glares into the darkness, instantly recognizing the presence. Linga, the demon of ruin, looms over him and mocks him for regressing into a helpless child. Overcome with rage, Itsuki screams at the monster responsible for his nightmare. He lunges forward with murder in his eyes, desperate to tear the demon apart. Linga effortlessly parries the blow and warns Itsuki that true despair is coming for him soon. The demon shatters the nightmare world around them into pieces. As the dream crumbles, Itsuki swears he will kill Linga no matter what it takes. He snaps awake in a cold sweat, gasping for breath. Looking around the room, he realizes Iberia passed out asleep beside his bed. Itsuki rubs his face, wondering why his eyes hurt so much despite having no physical injury. His heterochromia eyes gleam softly in the dark as he tries to process what happened. He checks his torso and is shocked to find his fatal battle wounds completely healed. He tries to quietly shush Death Hound, so the giant wolf won't wake up Iberia. Death Hound completely ignores him and barks as loud as possible. Iberia startles awake, immediately unleashing a gust of wind thinking a monster is attacking. Realizing Itsuki is fine, Iberia tackles him in a massive sigh of relief. Iberia mentions he has been asleep for 3 hours, putting them at 3 a.m. on the second day of the prophecy. Itsuki gets dressed and refuses to relax, knowing the danger is far from over. He walks out the door to check on the defensive perimeter with Yusuke. On the way, Iberia bugs him about giving Death Hound a better custom nickname. Itsuki realizes basic bandages couldn't have saved him, forcing Iberia to admit he used his hidden healing magic. Yusuke explains that no other saviors have arrived because the forest path is exceptionally deep. Even with that explanation, Itsuki gets a terrible feeling that something is wrong. Far outside in the dark woods, a dark, malevolent presence begins to gather. Meanwhile, an incoming savior reinforcement squad suddenly halts their advance. The point guard senses an enemy blocking the trail ahead. A massive disaster beast leaps into view, forcing the squad to draw their weapons. A flame-haired demon steps out from the shadows to block their path. With glowing red eyes and a sinister grin, the demon commander prepares to slaughter the reinforcements before they ever reach Itsuki. Deep in the woods, a flaming skeleton monster readies its blade as demon invaders wipe out human forces. White Oni stands over the crushed victims, laughing at how easily human bodies break under a single attack. From the shadows, Frostbite Wraith King calls out to check if the slaughter is finally complete. White Oni chuckles at the flattened bodies, taking pride in his gruesome work. Habin Hana panics over how these monsters bypass the barrier, but White Oni just smirks while igniting his flame. Cornered and completely helpless, Hana bursts into tears as she awaits her execution. Before White Oni can strike, Frostbite Wraith King steps in and freezes his feet to stop the kill. Glacial ice rapidly creeps up White Oni's body, trapping him completely. White Oni immediately backs down and begs for release as the ice steam melts off his skin. Hana dares to hope she might be spared, while White Oni asks why this human is an exception. Frostbite Wraith King raises his dark hand, revealing he intends to test a power granted by Lord Linga. Dark energy claws slice right through Hana, making her scream out in agony. She drops her head and hangs motionless in total silence. White Oni assumes she died, but Wraith King clarifies she is simply undergoing demonization. Hana snaps her head up, revealing glowing red eyes and a dark mark etched into her forehead. Wraith King explains that demonization forces humans into absolute obedience to Lord Linga. He commands Hana to return as a sleeper agent and claim her team was wiped out by disaster beasts. Hana bows her head in complete submission, accepting her new mission without question. With her orders locked in, Wraith King dismisses his new puppet. Hana turns around and prepares to head back toward human society. She sprints into the night to spread her cover story. Wraith King drops a bomb, revealing that tens of thousands of humans and awakened have already been turned into hidden sleeper agents. He orders his squad forward, focusing on their main objective now that the secret army is growing. Over at the workshop, Bokuto, Yusuke, and Iberia inspect a level 30 iron golem brought in to handle manual labor. Bokuto admits they hardly need extra help with powerhouses around, but Iberia stays focused on the task. When Bokuto asks where Tenma Itsuki went, Iberia points inside Crafter King's forge. Inside the forge, Itsuki checks his system UI, noting his broken critical crystal rate rose to 4% after the fight. He describes how landing that critical hit made his senses explode, creating a feeling of pure omnipotence. Crafter King recognizes the symptoms immediately, describing hyper-focused awareness combined with total emotional calm. He officially names the phenomenon, shocking Itsuki, by revealing he entered the legendary flow state. Itsuki looks confused, so the old smith simplifies it as being completely in the zone. Crafter King breaks down the stats, explaining flow state boosts all skill outputs to 120%, but almost no one can trigger it at will. He hammers away at his anvil, recalling it took him 2 whole years after awakening to experience it for the first time. Itsuki suddenly freezes mid-conversation, staring into the distance as Crafter King notices his sudden shift. He senses 3 massive mana signatures approaching, assuming they are savior reinforcements. His eyes widen as he realizes the mana feels way too rough and stagnant to belong to human awakened. Without wasting a second, Itsuki bolts out of the blacksmith workshop to investigate. He slams open the door, startling Iberia and Bokuto outside. Itsuki warns them that a massive hostile mana wave is heading straight for their position. Iberia starts reassuring him that the iron golem can handle basic beasts, only for a shockwave to shatter the air. The level 30 iron golem gets obliterated in a single instant, forcing Bokuto to draw his blade. 3 demon commanders land on the wreckage, led by the terrifying level 87 Frostbite Wraith King. Tenma immediately senses that these new disaster beasts are operating on a higher level than anything he has faced so far. The hooded enemy commander radiates an intense surge of mana that completely overshadows the others. Frostbite Wraith King decides to head straight for the main target himself, handing the secondary group off to his lieutenants. Before leaving, he gives a strict order to ensure the magic eye isn't damaged during the assault. Red Flame Demon King happily accepts the order, leaving Tenma and Iberia stunned that these disaster beasts can actually communicate. Before anyone can move toward the leader, Square General 336 steps up to block the path. Tenma gets caught off guard by just how fast the monster closes the distance. He realizes he cannot afford to lose focus for even a second against this level of speed. Bokuto charges forward alongside Tenma to keep the disaster beasts away from Aiden. Tenma instantly erects an ice wall across the path to divide the battlefield. Bokuto braces against the solid barrier, surprised by how dense the ice structure is. Square General 336 maneuvers around the ice and drops down directly behind Bokuto. The monster strikes down with immense force, forcing Bokuto to block with his heavy sword. Red Flame Demon King unleashes his A-rank Red Flame bullet skill, completely blowing through Tenma's black ice wall. The force of the fiery impact sends Iberia tumbling backward. Tenma kicks himself for relying on the ice wall against an A-rank fire skill, while the demon mocks his weak defense. Red Flame Demon King checks Tenma's status card and sees his level locked at 0. Since he assumes a level 0 human couldn't possibly be the magic eye, the demon decides to go all out and incinerate him. The enemy laughs when Tenma brings out Death Hound, assuming a 2-on-1 team-up will not save him. He builds up another wave of flames, claiming even 10 summons wouldn't change the outcome. Tenma quietly orders Death Hound to leave the fight and go protect Aiden instead. A massive fire blast scorches the ground, but Tenma managed to dodge out of the way just in time. Death Hound dashes across the terrain toward Aiden while the demon wonders if the beast is going after the target. Tenma plays weak until his analysis gauge hits 38%, then taunts the demon with glowing electric aura. Red Flame Demon King completely loses his cool after being insulted by a human. Recognizing the enemy is a long-range specialist, Tenma uses electric speed to sprint straight through the fire. The demon is caught off guard as Tenma blitzes forward. Tenma instantly closes the gap, putting himself right in front of the monster. Just as Tenma goes to strike, Red Flame Demon King unexpectedly deploys a flame shield. The shield explodes into a point-blank blast, blowing Tenma clear off his feet. Tenma skids across the dirt covered in burns, realizing he severely underestimated an intelligent disaster beast. Even with his clothes torn and body battered, Tenma forces himself back to his feet to keep buying time. Red Flame Demon King smirks, ready to deliver a final lethal hit. The demon tells him to stay down, while Tenma mutters under his breath about how slowly the A-rank analysis is progressing. Frostbite Wraith King lists off Crafter King's legendary creations, acknowledging him as the top craftsman among humans. Crafter King isn't about to take orders from a demon, so he draws his blade to fight back. Before he can swing, dark ice freezes him solid in a single instant. Iberia watches hidden in the shadows as his father gets trapped in ice. Suddenly, Itsuki's death hound lunges from above to attack the demon. The shadow wolf roars as it dives right for Frostbite Wraith King. Ice spikes sprout instantly, blasting the summon back. Frostbite Wraith King wonders how a Shikigami slipped past his allies outside, while Crafter King realizes help has arrived. Seeing even a high-tier summon knocked away, Iberia panics. He considers getting Itsuki, but remembers Itsuki is already battered and bringing him back would get them both killed. Iberia stealing his resolve to handle this on his own. He slips out to retrieve the legendary dragon gear hidden under his father's bed, while Frostbite Wraith King mocks him as a fleeing coward. Leaving the rest of the fight to his commanders, Frostbite Wraith King prepares to kidnap the frozen Crafter King, while Red Flame Demon King ignites his signature fire bullet. Outside, Itsuki uses black ice wall to stabilize his broken body. He wraps his burned leg in ice to force himself back into action. Red Flame Demon King taunts him for dodging while battered, unleashing another volley of fire. The demon doubles down, firing a rapid barrage from both hands. Fireballs rain down like a targeted strike. Itsuki gets completely surrounded in midair by the incoming barrage. There are too many blasts to dodge in his weakened state. Itsuki intentionally takes the hits, as the system analysis gauge ticks past 90%. He lets the flames engulf him to buy those final crucial seconds. Red Flame Demon King grins, thinking he has won. The demon fires one final concentrated shot, right, as the system hits 100% completion. Red Flame Demon King pauses as something unexpected bursts through the flames. The completed analysis unlocks Black Ice Wall Level 2, fully restoring Itsuki's body and giving him massive defense against fire. Itsuki steps out completely unharmed as the system restores his physical form. Red Flame Demon King powers up his aura, determined to finish off the human. The demon freezes in shock seeing Itsuki, completely healed with 0 scars left. Itsuki admits he was going to save Crafter King first, but those fire attacks brought back terrible memories. With pure murder in his glowing eyes, Itsuki decides to crush this demon first. Bokuto Yusuke gets launched backward by an insane strike, barely holding his ground in the forest. He readies his broadsword as another beast leaps out from the shadows. Knowing Itsuki can handle himself, Yusuke focuses entirely on holding off these pursuers. He vows to finish off this opponent quickly so he can race back to support his allies. Back inside the workshop, Iberia frantically crawls under the furniture looking for his father's stash. His eyes light up as he spots what he was looking for hidden beneath the floorboards. He pulls out the dragon gear, confident this artifact will give him the strength to fight. Inside the chest lies the red spiked armor, carrying a strict 15-minute operational limit. Iberia equips the gear, refusing to be a burden as power surges through him. Stat notifications confirm his boosted speed and attack power as he prepares to save his father. Outside, Frostbite Wraith King looms over frozen Crafter King Aiden, boasting that only top-tier saviors can match him. The demon taunts the frozen master, claiming humanity is already overwhelmed by their army. Wraith King reveals Crafter King was not their sole target, and multiple dark operations are already in motion. He looks back toward the frozen block as a sudden movement interrupts his monologue. Annoyed, the Wraith King senses someone charging straight toward him. Iberia leaps from above in full dragon gear, screaming at the demon to give his father back. The Wraith King glares upward, surprised a human kid equipped with gear is foolish enough to challenge him. Meanwhile, on the main battlefield, Red Flame Demon King watches in disbelief as Tenma Itsuki stands surrounded by a healing lotus aura. Itsuki stands tall with his burns entirely gone and his physique fully restored. Refusing to accept it, the Demon King readies another fire barrage. Itsuki activates Black Ice Wall, surrounding himself in dark ice spikes as fire bullets rain down. A massive fiery explosion erupts over the battlefield where Itsuki stands. Itsuki walks straight out of the flames unharmed, triggering a defense stat buff for tanking the A-rank fire skill. Activating Roaring Wave, Itsuki surges forward with incredible speed. Red Flame Demon King panics as Itsuki closes the distance faster than he can react. With glowing eyes, Itsuki declares he is going to tear through every layer of the demon's defenses. Itsuki slams his crystalline ice gauntlet directly into the demon's red flame barrier. Cracks instantly web across the fire shield under the sheer force of his punch. The barrier shatters into pieces, leaving the Demon King completely exposed. Itsuki roars in triumph as his defense stats stack even higher. He locks eyes on his target, ready to finish off the enemy commander. Terrified, Red Flame Demon King turns and flees, screaming for White Oni and Wraith King to save him. The demon stumbles in sheer panic, unable to believe a human is hunting him down. Itsuki instantly cuts off his escape route, appearing right beside him. The Demon King freezes in horror, realizing he has nowhere left to run. A system notification triggers from the broken critical crystal, guaranteeing a 100% critical hit on Itsuki's next strike. Red Flame Demon King breaks into a cold sweat as death looms right in front of him. Tenma stands victorious over the crater left by the defeated Flame Demon. He realizes that landing that critical strike automatically triggered his flow state once again. With the stat boost active, his total power score pushes past 2,000. A green karma orb suddenly emerges from the fallen beast and takes off. The streak of energy shoots out straight across the forest canopy. Tenma immediately rushes after the orb using his lightning aura to keep pace. Over at the workshop, Iberia leaps in with his red dragon gear armor to attack the Frostbite Wraith King. He is stunned when his full power swing fails to break through the demon's defense. He keeps swinging anyway while his father, Aiden, yells at him from inside an ice block. Aiden desperately orders him to take off the gear, warning him about its hidden price. Iberia refuses to back down, determined to save his dad no matter what. The Wraith King just mocks human sentiment while standing over his frozen prey. He decides he is done wasting time on minor annoyances. A massive surge of jagged ice magic erupts forward. Aiden stays trapped in the ice prison as the Wraith King tells him to know his place. Aiden can only watch helplessly through the frost. Meanwhile, Deathhound shatters out of its ice shell and levels up to 20. Tenma arrives and realizes Deathhound was the target that absorbed the stray karma orb. Looking up, Tenma sees the entire workshop engulfed in giant ice structures and dark mana. Realizing the urgency, he knows he cannot wait for Bokuto Yusuk. Elsewhere in the woods, Bokuto slashes a metallic beast with his broadsword. The monster's wounds immediately seal up due to high-speed regeneration. Bokuto notices the monster constantly guarding its neck and prepares a counter plan. He unleashes a barrage of heavy red sword strikes to set up his opening. He severs both of the beast's arms in one swing, knowing he has a single second before they grow back. During that tiny delay, he lands a massive slash right through its exposed neck. The headless beast collapses dead on the ground. Bokuto catches his breath and hurries to regroup with Tenma. Back at the frozen workshop, Aiden speaks up from inside his ice shell. He offers to accept any conditions if the Wraith King will just let his son go. The Wraith King reveals that dragon gear carries the lingering consciousness of the magic dragon, which gradually swallows the user whole. Right on cue, Iberia contorts in agony as the armor's foreign energy hijacks his body. The transformation completes, turning Iberia into a true dragon. 10 years ago, young Iberia gets a wooden sword as a birthday gift from his mother. His mother smiles, thrilled to see him so happy with his new present. Iberia immediately poses like a legendary hero, ready to take on the world. His father, crafter King Aiden, watches from the doorway and sarcastically wonders if he even has friends to show it to. Outside, Iberia proudly shows off his brand new toy to the local kids. The older kids exchanged sly, mischievous looks as they surround him. One of the bullies extends his hand, demanding to borrow the wooden sword. Iberia freezes, clutching his prized possession tight to his chest. They pressure him, pointing out that his famous blacksmith dad can just make him another one. Surrounded by looming shadows, Iberia desperately wants to stand his ground and say no. The bully leans in close, intimidating him into submission. Terrified, Iberia forces a fake smile and hands the sword over with tears in his eyes. The kids run off laughing, swinging his sword around without a second thought. Later that afternoon, Iberia trudges back to his courtyard completely empty-handed. His mother welcomes him back with a warm, gentle smile. Iberia forces a bright grin and lies, pretending he had the best time ever. She immediately notices his missing toy, while Aiden grumbles that the neighborhood brats took it again. When his mom tries to intervene, Aiden stops her, insisting that backing down will only lead to a lifetime of getting pushed around. That night, Iberia curls up in the dark crying alone, labeled a coward by his own father. Looking back on that painful memory, Iberia wonders why Tenma Itsuki means so much to him. Months later, Aiden grabs a doctor in the hospital hallway, refusing to accept that his wife is out of time. Iberia stands quietly by his mother's bed as she calls out to him. She reaches out softly, telling her crying son not to weep for her. She acknowledges his father thinks he is weak, but she knows he just has a heart that is far too kind. She clasps his small hands in hers, warning him that kindness without the power to protect others ends up hurting everyone. With her final breaths, she asks him to grow strong, act bravely, and take care of his father. The heart monitor flatlines as her hand slips away. Iberia sobs over her bed, making a solemn vow to become the strongest, bravest, and kindest savior in the world. Standing in that quiet hospital room, Iberia realizes why he has always idolized Itsuki. He remembers meeting Itsuki and watching him effortlessly tame the death hound with raw strength. Whether facing an army of enemy awakeners or colossal disaster beasts, Itsuki never backs down. And behind that ruthless combat exterior, Itsuki always carries his injured allies to safety. Back in the present near the Green Barrier, Iberia explains that Itsuki is the exact hero his mother wanted him to be. Bokudo Yusuke smiles at his speech, but Iberia lowers his head, admitting he still feels like a talentless coward. Even so, a fierce, determined grin breaks across his bloodied face. In the active battle zone, the massive red flame demon king breathes heavily as smoke rises around it. The towering demon turns its head toward Iberia. With sharp fangs bared and glowing red eyes locked on target, the monster prepares to strike. Itsuki spots Iberia in the dragon gear and immediately wonders why he equipped something forbidden again. Before he can get an answer, he notices Iberia isn't acting normal at all. The armor's dragon visage glows as its sinister aura deepens. Itsuki asks if Iberia just spoke and demands to know where his father Aiden went. Instead of answering, Iberia loses his mind and lunges straight for him. He grabs Itsuki by the head, leaving Itsuki desperately shouting for him to wake up. The demonic face of the gear glares back, completely overriding Iberia's mind. The armor unleashes a wind blade skill right through the clearing. Itsuki dodges just in time as the wind slice shreds the surrounding trees. Charging up his lightning aura, Itsuki tries to figure out if this is a side effect or external mind control. He activates Thunderbreaker to shock and pin Iberia down without killing him. The lightning blast hits head-on, but the armor absorbs the shock. Itsuki senses that the mana definitely belongs to Iberia, leaving him furious and confused. For a brief second, Iberia regains enough control to beg Itsuki to kill him. Before Itsuki can process that, the suit forces Iberia to land a heavy strike to his chest. Bokudo Yusuke leaps in with his massive broadsword to block the follow-up blow. The sheer force of Iberia's charge sends Yusuke crashing backward through the dirt. Itsuki tries to explain the situation, but Yusuke already knows how bad this is. Iberia circles them at terrifying speed, fully taken over by the armor's power. Itsuki says they need to take it off, but Yusuke warns that it has already fused with his body. Yusuke reveals the armor only comes off if the host dies, raising his sword to finish Iberia himself. Itsuki steps in and insists on handling it so Yusuke doesn't have to carry that weight. He tells Yusuke that Aiden was taken by an ice beast and asks him to go save him instead. Itsuki summons Death Hound to track Aiden's scent and lead the rescue party. Yusuke agrees to go, warning that Iberia will only get more violent if he isn't stopped here. Iberia drops in for an attack, giving Itsuki the opening to send Death Hound off with Yusuke. Left alone, the possessed Iberia braces his stance to charge up an even bigger spell. A wind slice grazes Itsuki's cheek, drawing blood and making him realize something strange. Since his auto-dodge skill didn't trigger, Itsuki realizes Iberia's true soul is holding back the killer intent. The armor overrides that resistance and launches a storm of wind blades from every angle. Bro just straight up tanks it like it's no big deal. Covered in deep cuts and blood after 1,000 wind blades, Itsuki stands firm, refusing to give up on his friend. Deep in the demon territory, a minion reports to Lord Linga that Aiden has been captured, even if a couple of their lower commanders failed. The multi-eyed demon informant reveals the name of the monster holding off Peter, Heighten Show. Over on the battlefield, the sheer force of Heighten's blows sends shockwaves tearing straight through the terrain. Watching from a distance, an officer can barely believe Heighten has been going all out since yesterday afternoon. Violent impact blasts keep rattling the entire mountain crater. That's when Peter, one of the 8 demon kings, comes crashing down right in front of them. Ageha Izumi watches in shock as Heighten keeps taking hits that could easily level the ground. She tries to jump in to assist, but Izumi Nento holds her back and reassures her that Heighten won't go down that easily. An onlooker stands completely stunned by the ridiculous level of energy exploding above. Because every special class savior is basically a walking disaster, standing at the peak of humanity. Peter suddenly grimaces, realizing the pressure coming from Heighten is shifting fast. It turns out Heighten is unleashing his second form, a state he rarely needs to pull out. Now known as the Tyrant, Heighten surges with a terrifying dark crimson aura, trading his sanity for raw destructive power. Crimson aura bursts across the battlefield as his stats skyrocket. Heighten slams down on Peter with pure berserk brutality, totally living up to his title. A massive dust cloud erupts from where the Demon King got pulverized. Steaming from the energy overload, Heighten stands over the crater. Without wasting a single second, he leaps off toward his next objective. Ageha and Nento watch him head straight for the stone monument maintaining the barrier. Meanwhile, back in the forest, eyes slowly open as consciousness returns. Tenma Itsuki wakes up on the ground, completely groggy and wondering how he's still alive. Covered in blood, Itsuki looks around to see if the immediate threat was taken care of. Sitting up near a slain beast, Itsuki realizes his ally came out to the surface again to clean up. Over at the barrier site, Ageha sighs in relief now that the main fight seems over. Nento points out that earlier, she was actually willing to sacrifice her own life just to heal Heighten. She gets flustered and immediately changes the subject, worrying about how Itsuki is faring in the woods. Back during the fight, Iberia had cried out in horror, watching Itsuki refuse to dodge any incoming attacks. Slashes carved into Itsuki's body, but he deliberately tanked every hit to numb the physical pain. Bloodied and resolute, Itsuki stood ground right in front of the possessed armor. He grabs the disaster beast's head at point-blank range, locking it in place. Itsuki activates Piercing True Sphere, blasting a hole straight through the beast. Dark energy smoke clears as the destructive skill settles. The dragon armor beast collapses dead behind Itsuki. As the armor shatters, Itsuki catches Iberia, only to see a fatal hole in his chest. Iberia apologizes through tears, hating that he messed up and became a burden to Itsuki. Itsuki looks at him softly and promises he never once thought of him as a burden. Iberia uses his final breaths to share intel, mentioning the disaster beast intended to dominate his father Aiden, not kill him. Crying blood, Iberia begs Itsuki to save his father, and Itsuki tells him to leave it to him. The true mastermind behind all this tragedy looms in shadow over Itsuki's mind. Under the night sky, Itsuki holds Iberia close as his friend utters his final words. With the hole in his armor exposed, the system officially confirms Iberia Hiss is deceased. High above on his throne, Demon Lord Linga watches everything unfold. Linga grins cruelly, swearing to destroy everyone Itsuki holds dear in the most brutal way possible. Bokudo and the officers trek through the dark mountain forest, noting that Height and Sho can barely stand after the fight. Choha's butterfly Shikigami picks up an unusual emotional wave coming from up ahead. Bokudo draws his blade defensively, ready for a fight. A quiet silhouette emerges in the darkness, carrying a fallen ally. They recognize Tenma Itsuki, who is covered in blood and cradling Iberia's body. Tenma looks up weakly, exhausted and battered from the battle. Choha gasps in shock at the sight of his injuries. Bokudo steps forward alongside Death Hound to explain what happened. Bokudo stands solemnly before Izumi Nento and Choha. Bokudo admits with a heavy heart that they lost the battle. The aftermath is grim. Half of the 7th district is destroyed, crafter King Aiden is abducted, and Iberia is dead. Death tried tracking the disaster beast's mana, but the monster left behind endless decoy clones. Back at headquarters, General Commander Nento asks about Tenma's condition. Choha reports his bleeding has stopped, but he stubbornly refuses any medical treatment. She worries that the intense hatred burning inside him will completely consume him as he sits alone in his room. Tenma stares at a framed photo of Iberia's happy family, remembering the promise he made. He stands up in the dark room, scarred and resolved to act. Tenma calls Death Hound to move out with him. He declares his intention to hunt down the disaster beast and crush it. His glowing eye locks in with pure vengeance. General Commander Izumi Nento blocks the doorway, standing firmly in his path. Tenma confronts Nento, Bokudo, and Choha gathered at his door. Bokudo acknowledges Tenma's terrifying strength, noting he defeated a level 30 beast and shattered the barrier on his own. When Tenma says he is going after Aiden, Nento gives him a cold, flat refusal. Nento tells him directly that he lacks the required second-class savior rank for special operations. Tenma shouts back that he promised Iberia he would save his father and will go regardless. Nento cuts through his anger by asking if he is okay with someone else dying because of his rashness. The harsh question leaves Tenma completely speechless. Nento admits his own mistake in assuming the enemy was only targeting him. He reassures Tenma that the demons will not kill Aiden easily, so charging in now is just a death sentence. Clenching his fist, Tenma listens as Nento acknowledges his limitless potential. Tenma looks up sharply and demands to know how he can gain that strength right now. Tenma reacts in surprise when Nento brings up the Apex camp. Nento explains that the top 10 tournament qualifiers are invited to the central continent for elite training. Every top warrior, including Rei Okuma, had to survive this brutal baptism to reach the top. And the clock starts right now, because the Apex camp begins in just 3 days. Izumi Nento lays out the stakes, explaining that surviving the Apex camp is the fastest path to becoming a special class savior. Tenma Itsuki agrees without hesitation, fully committing to joining the camp. Before anything else, Choha channels her healing magic to start patching up Tenma's battered body. Choha questions why he wants to go, warning him that Nento sent him somewhere far more intense than he thinks. She emphasizes that only top-tier geniuses gather there, making it a brutal proving ground. Choha warns him that the training is so lethal that fatal accidents happen every single year. She continues pouring her healing energy into him, hoping the harsh reality sinks in. Tenma casually replies that life-or-death combat is actually perfect because overmimesis only triggers against truly dangerous foes. Choha flushes with embarrassment when Tenma suddenly asks if she is overheating from using her healing magic. She flusters and denies it, insisting her body just naturally warms up during long spell casting. Her heart pounds wildly as she tries to regain her composure in front of him. Once his injuries are mostly healed, Tenma stands up and heads for the door. When Choha asks where he is going, he simply says he has to go say his goodbyes. Tenma visits Iberia's grave in the forest alongside Bokudo Yusuk. Yellow flowers and a sword sit quietly beside Iberia Hiss's headstone. Tenma confirms to Bokudo that he is heading to the Apex camp to get strong enough to crush the disaster beast. Bokudo remembers how Iberia gave everything to him, swearing to find and rescue Aiden no matter what. Tenma offers a fist bump, asking Bokudo to stay alive until they can team up to save Aiden. The two lock fists over the grave, sealing their solemn promise. Watching from a distance, Nento notes how quickly Tenma bounced back by locking his grief deep down to fuel his strength. Nento officially orders Choha to act as Tenma's guardian, while he investigates the suspicious monster attacks. When Tenma returns, he notices Choha looking surprisingly cheerful. When asked where Nento is heading, Choha clears her throat and claims the information is classified. She proudly announces that she is officially his guardian from now on, much to Tenma's skepticism. She tells him they are heading straight to the central continent to begin the Apex camp. Meanwhile, in a hospital room, a fully bandaged Ryuji Kinoshita wakes up screaming in pain. His mother rushes to comfort him, asking if he had another nightmare about the person who beat him up. Ryuji seethes through missing teeth, swearing to make Tenma pay 100 times over for humiliating him. His mother reassures him, revealing that his formidable older brother has finally returned to avenge him. Ryuji begs his silhouetted older brother to destroy Tenma for what he did. Learning that Tenma placed first in the preliminaries, Ryuji's brother realizes Tenma will definitely be at the camp. With a sinister fanged grin, the older brother vows to completely crush Tenma during the Apex camp. Choha and Itsuki finally arrive at the massive dome facility of Apex camp. Itsuki looks up in awe at the massive glass dome structure towering above him. He notices all the other candidates walking in with total confidence. Before turning back, Choha hands Itsuki his recording bracelet and lets him know he is on his own from here. She gives him one last stern warning not to draw attention to himself. Itsuki heads inside to the front desk, where a sleepy receptionist asks for his bracelet. The clerk scans the device on the blue terminal to pull up his record. The screen loads his info, confirming he is a level 0 order breaker with a special class gift. Seeing his level, the clerk assumes Itsuki just used connections and will crumble soon anyway. He lazily tells Itsuki to select a room and pay his housing fee. Itsuki is caught off guard, having no idea staying here actually costs money. When Itsuki admits he has no cash, the clerk asks about his preliminary points. He explains that points earned during the qualifiers automatically convert into camp currency. Itsuki figures he should have plenty saved up from his fights. The impatient clerk taps the desk, so Itsuki casually asks for the most expensive option. The menu brings up standard rooms for 100 points a month and luxury options for 500. There is also a private villa for 2,000 points, which Itsuki decides is perfect since he needs space for Death Hound. Itsuki calmly picks the villa, leaving the clerk completely stunned. The clerk grumbles, assuming this rookie is throwing his life savings away. He hands back the processed bracelet. Curious how many points a level 0 could possibly have, the clerk checks the system. He starts sweating, wondering if the display is glitching. The screen confirms Itsuki has a staggering balance of over 100,000 points. The clerk faints in disbelief, remembering he only started with 1,600. Itsuki walks out into the main plaza packed with veteran candidates. He immediately stops, realizing he forgot to ask where his villa is. Two sketchy veterans notice he looks lost and step up, offering directions. When Itsuki mentions he is looking for the villa, both guys freeze. They scream in sheer shock at hearing a newcomer book the highest tier. Itsuki asks if something is wrong while the two huddle up to whisper. Watching them scheme, Itsuki realizes they are trying to trick him. From the balcony above, Shinakagami watches the scammers target another rookie. Her eyes widen as she recognizes Itsuki as the monster who broke the preliminary score record. Two local veterans whisper about Itsuki dropping 2,000 points on a luxury villa, assuming he must be an easy target. They figure any rookie spending that much money is just a spoiled rich kid who does not understand the value of points. The duo decides to follow right behind Itsuki, plotting to extort every single point he has. They share a shady grin, thinking they found the ultimate mark. Itsuki walks casually through the camp with his hands in his pockets, completely unbothered. Gaku Ode spots Itsuki passing by and recognizes him from before the preliminaries. Gaku realizes Itsuki is getting dragged into a scam, but decides it is none of his business. As the Northern Continent's third-place qualifier, Gaku stays focused on his own goal to surpass Itsuki. The scammers guide Itsuki straight to the impressive villa district. Once they arrive in private, Sano cracks his knuckles and demands a guide fee. Itsuki turns around calmly and offers to leave them a tip for the directions. When Futagi aggressively demands a full 1,000 points, Itsuki surprisingly agrees to pay it. Itsuki asks how to transfer the funds, making the duo laugh at how spineless he seems. Seeing how easily he complies, they instantly jack the price up to 5,000 points. Sano steps in close, threatening to strip him of every point he owns. Itsuki lowers his head as his entire demeanor suddenly turns cold. His eyes flash red and cyan through the darkness. A dark aura flares up around Itsuki as he calls out their shakedown, leaving the scammers startled by his sudden shift. Itsuki warns them that he is already furious, so whatever happens next is on them. Futagi charges forward, using his rank B lightning punch to finish him off. Itsuki takes the hit directly, using Thunder Wave to absorb the lightning and boost his agility. Before Futagi can even react to the absorbed attack, Itsuki counters and knocks him down instantly. Realizing Itsuki's speed is insane, Sano decides to end the fight in a single strike. Sano triggers his physical enhancement skill, bulging into a giant order breaker muscle form. Sano enhances both arms and throws a flurry of heavy blows, but Itsuki dodges every strike effortlessly. Itsuki breaks right through the attack and slams Sano into the ground despite his enhanced defense. Itsuki stands over Sano, telling him his buffed stats do not even come close to his own base power. A system alert pops up, confirming his next attack will trigger a guaranteed critical hit. Itsuki stops his glowing fist a millimeter from Sano's face, leaving the scammer frozen in sheer terror. Itsuki pulls back, realizing a critical hit at that distance would have completely blown the guy's head off. He glares down with glowing eyes and orders them to get lost. Both scammers scramble to their feet and sprint away in absolute panic, calling him a monster. Watching from above, Shin Akagami notes just how terrifying Itsuki truly is. Shin stretches as the camp announcement calls all candidates for the enlistment test. Itsuki listens to the broadcast, remembering Choha's warning that half the recruits get wiped out right here. Itsuki makes his way through the massive crowd gathered for the Apex camp test. By the way, is that Gojo right there? Bro's just expanding his multiverse at his point. Someone touches his shoulder from behind, and his reflexes kick in instantly. His fist stops a millimeter away from hitting Seiya. He pulls back the moment he realizes who it is. Seiya and Take tease him for being so jumpy, then ask why Iberia is not with him. Seiya worries that Iberia might have been hurt during the recent attack. Itsuki simply says Iberia stayed home to rest, while Take teases Seiya until she chops his head. Seiya vows to give this test everything she has to get stronger. Take can hardly believe she thinks she is weak, but a loud shout cuts off their banter. The proctor announces over a megaphone that every recruit's status is now hidden, so everyone starts from zero. A status window pops up showing all stats marked as undisclosed to prove the rule. With the rules set, the proctor officially launches the enlistment test. The crowd begins filing into the venue in an orderly line. Inside, Take and Seiya are stunned by the sheer size of the arena. Southern Continent's top qualifier, Keijin Imamichi, approaches with a cold gaze. The two scammers Itsuki beat earlier point at him, claiming he attacked them and insulted their continent. Keijin steps up and demands an explanation. Seiya jumps in immediately, telling Keijin his lackeys are lying. Take points right in Keijin's face and says he should thank them for disciplining his trash. Keijin uses aura pressure to slap Take's hand away. He warns Take that he will rip his arm off if he touches him again. Before Take can blow his top, Itsuki places a calm hand on his shoulder. Itsuki steps forward and tells Keijin he has no intention of explaining himself. His eyes flash red with pure intent as he warns Keijin never to touch his friends again. Bystanders warn Keijin that fighting here means a penalty, so he suggests taking it to the camp arena later. Itsuki accepts the challenge without hesitation. A glowing portal opens up to lead everyone into the testing zone. The proctor smiles at the group and hopes they keep that energy going. He prepares to break down how the enlistment exam works. He drops a shocker by announcing there are no rules for this exam. He reveals 4 testing chambers behind him and lets everyone pick their own order. The board shows the rules. Scoring 80 points grants honor status, while failing under 60 gets you kicked out. Recruits immediately start popping stat potions and equipping gear to max out their scores. Seiya asks where to start, and Itsuki casually picks the closest room. Take grins when he sees which chamber they are walking up to. They step into the death chamber, where Take feels right at home as a metal elementalist. They spot the examiner standing alone in the center of the hall. The examiner steps forward, revealing himself as a level 40 earth elementalist. He summons 5 massive floating boulders using his earth magic. The examiner commands them to defend as the rocks come flying their way. The defense examiner calls out the Northern Continent group and picks Rikyuru to step up first. Seiya tells him to be careful, but Rikyuru insists taking a few stone hits will be easy. The instructor tells him to buff beforehand, so Rikyuru triggers metallization to boost his defense by 50%. He locks his silver arms into a guard stance, bringing his total defense rating to 258. The examiner summons a glowing projectile and announces they are starting at difficulty 1. Rikyuru absorbs the shot without flinching and demands to jump straight to difficulty 2. The instructor obliges and fires a faster, higher-tier magic projectile. The projectile slams directly into Rikyuru's guarded arms with heavy force. Seiya and Itsuki watch from the sidelines to see if he can handle the blast. Rikyuru gives a quick thumbs up, trying to look fine despite sweating under the pressure. Itsuki activates magic detection and realizes these projectiles are condensed magic, making them hit way harder than normal stone. Even with his metal enhancement active, Rikyuru feels his arms starting to go completely numb. The examiner asks if he wants to stop, but Rikyuru stubbornly demands to try difficulty 3. The instructor forms a much larger magic projectile, while Rikyuru braces himself for impact. The massive projectile hits Rikyuru dead-on, unleashing a violent burst of energy. The blast knocks Rikyuru off his feet and sends him crashing into the dust. Seiya covers her mouth in shock, while Itsuki keeps his eyes fixed on the ring. Seiya calls out across the hall to check if he is still conscious. Rikyuru groans on the ground, barely raising a hand to signal that he survived. The instructor praises him for staying conscious through difficulty 3, while Itsuki helps his battered friend back to the group. Itsuki steps into the ring and calculates that since his base defense is already 627, he can push far higher. When the examiner asks where he wants to begin, Itsuki casually answers with 5. The instructor freezes in utter disbelief, double-checking if he misheard. Itsuki holds up 5 fingers and calmly reaffirms he wants the maximum difficulty right away. The surrounding recruits panic, shouting that skipping straight to difficulty 5 is complete suicide. Annoyed by his arrogance, the examiner summons a giant, meteor-sized rock burning with dense magic. The examiner tells him to prepare a defensive skill, but Itsuki casually declines, saying he does not need one. The instructor hurls the giant meteor rock straight down, and Itsuki simply stands there to take the hit head-on. The resulting impact creates a massive shockwave that forces everyone in the hall to shield their eyes. Assuming Itsuki was crushed, the examiner immediately pulls out his radio to dispatch the emergency medical squad. Before he can finish the transmission, the instructor stops dead in his tracks. Through the thick smoke clouds, a tall silhouette remains standing completely upright. The radio crackles with the medical captain, asking for the location of the injured trainee. Itsuki steps out of the dust without a single scratch, brushing off his coat and asking if that was really difficulty 5. The examiner stands speechless, realizing that in 3 years of testing hundreds of recruits, no one has ever tanked difficulty 5 raw without using a skill. After Itsuki tanks the massive blow without a scratch, the other candidates back away in total shock, realizing his rank was no fluke. Rikyoru admits he got blown out of the water, but Itsuki casually reminds him that everyone has different strengths. Seiya steps up for her defense evaluation, and the instructor gives her the green light to use skills. She decides to start at difficulty 3 right off the bat, summoning her flowing water wall to prepare for the hit. As the incoming rock speeds toward her, Seiya focuses on channeling her magic to brace for impact. Instead of tanking the projectile head-on, her water currents completely deflect the force and send the rock rolling away safely. The examiner is immediately impressed by how cleverly she handled the attack. He praises her quick thinking, telling her that flexible combat instincts are what real saviors actually need. Seiya thanks him as he calls up the next student to finish up the defense portion. With their defense scores locked in, Itsuki, Seiya, and Rikyoru head over to the attack testing venue. The new instructor steps up and tells all the recruits to listen up. He explains that this next test is strictly about measuring their raw offensive power. Rikyoru nervously asks if they are supposed to attack him, getting told to quiet down by the group. The examiner summons his B-rank Shikigami, Nendoroid Tonma, to act as the target. The crew looks at the giant plush target in utter disbelief because of how bizarre it looks. The proctor explains that they can hit it barehanded or with weapons, essentially treating it like an indestructible punching bag. To show them how it works, the instructor casually throws a single punch right into the plush target. His quick hit scores a 50, setting the benchmark while smugly claiming no teen recruit will get anywhere near full marks. Hanma Yuichiro gets called up first and boasts that he will easily max out the score. The level 45 Shikigami user just kicks back with his T and tells him to fire whenever he is ready. Yuichiro amps his entire arm with green energy, determined to secure his spot at camp. He slams his skill-infused punch directly into the target's face. The plush target barely budges and registers a disappointing 37 points, leaving Yuichiro stunned. The instructor sips his tea unimpressed and tells the crowd to stop wasting time. A lineup of candidates take their turns, but their best attempts barely scrape together mediocre scores. As the examiner flips through a swimsuit magazine and calls low scores pathetic, Gaku Ode steps up to the mark. Gaku charges up his massive warhammer with fiery energy, confident that no one can rival his raw strength. He swings his weapon down, blasting the target with a huge explosive impact. The target absorbs the blow and flashes a massive score of 91 points. Gaku smirks, annoyed he missed top marks but feeling good about setting the highest bar so far. He turns around and scans the crowd, looking for Itsuki to see if he can top it. Right on cue, the examiner calls Tenma Itsuki to step up for his turn. Gaku zeroes in on him with a sharp, fiery glare. He grins, eager to finally see what the top qualifier is really made of. The examiner sighs in disappointment as another candidate fails to hit 50 points, while Tenma Itsuki prepares his strike. Itsuki channels his power into a single punch. The strike lands with shockwave force right into the plush target. The energy tears through the target in an explosive blast. The examiner drops his magazine in shock, unable to believe a trainee ripped his target apart barehanded. Itsuki looks at his hand, realizing his critical hits from earlier were still stored up. When the scoreboard confirms a maximum score of 100 points, the entire crowd loses its mind. Gaku-Ode stares in total disbelief, realizing Itsuki beat his hammer score barehanded. Gaku grips his weapon, knowing Itsuki only stopped at 100 because the machine capped out. Humbled by the gap between them, Gaku lets his weapon rest on the floor. The examiner breaks into a sweat, wondering if Itsuki is already at the level of a high-tier hunter. With testing suspended to repair the target, Itsuki tries to act humble while Take brags to everyone about his friend's score. Seiya suggests Itsuki try another station while they wait, and they agree to meet up at the main plaza later. Itsuki checks his schedule and decides to head to the Mana test next. At the venue, a level 42 crafter instructor steps up to explain the trial. The male trainees get instantly distracted by her looks, hoping a high score buys them a date. Shinakagami watches from the side, rolling her eyes at how easily the guys lose focus. Itsuki ignores the noise and locks his gaze on the covered device on stage. The instructor unveils a rare mana storage crystal designed to gauge energy capacity. She explains that candidates just need to place a hand on the orb and pour their mana inside. She smiles quietly as she prepares the crystal for the first candidate. When a trainee worries about losing energy for other tests, she reassures him that the orb gives all drained mana right back. She opens the stage for volunteers, and the flustered trainee immediately steps up first. She leans in close and tells him he can start whenever he is ready. Determined to impress her, the guy resolves to give it everything he has. He slams his hand down and unleashes his full mana surge into the orb. Panic sets in as the crystal drains every drop of his energy before he can even fill half of it. The instructor casually taps his forehead to quiet him down. Her eyes glow as she reveals the crystal has easily drained level 40 awakeners dry before, leaving the recruits in trouble. The crowd panics after seeing even level 40 trainees get drained dry, while the instructor starts returning their energy. She casually flirts with the last candidate while calling for challenger number 2. Itsuki hesitates for a second, but before he can even raise his hand properly, someone else steps up. Northern Continent's Rank 2 qualifier, Habin Hana, takes the stage as Shin watches closely. Hana places a hand on the orb and channels green magic straight into the crystal. The crowd immediately starts trash-talking when the initial output looks weak, prompting Hana to reach for a weapon. The moment the blade is unbacked, intense green energy bursts into the air. Hana locks eyes on the target with total focus. The crowd gasps as the magic pressure skyrockets well past its initial baseline. Itsuki notices right away that the Karma Tool sword acts as an external battery, feeding Hana extra energy. With that boost, the crystal quickly fills to nearly max capacity. The instructor smiles, announcing an 80% score that would easily take top rank over the last 5 years. She praises Hana as an adorable girl, only for Hana to casually drop the revelation that he is actually a guy. The entire room petrifies in disbelief after having their hearts broken. Hana nods as the examiner prepares to transfer all that absorbed power back. Refilling an 80% tank leaves the instructor completely exhausted. She catches her breath and calls for the next volunteer. Itsuki steps up, and the instructor immediately admires his looks before asking for an introduction. Itsuki mentions his modest base stat, leading the crowd to write him off since he is not holding a weapon. He places his hand on the orb as dark aura begins flaring up. With his mana detection passive active, every single awakened in the hall counts as a target. System notifications flood in endlessly, stacking 10% mana recovery loops off every person in the room. The audience freaks out seeing him pump this much energy without even using a karma tool. Sweat drops down the examiner's face as the glass sphere reaches its limit. Deep purple energy fills every inch of the testing crystal. Itsuki decides to keep pouring power until the orb simply cannot hold anymore. The instructor completely loses her cool and screams at him to stop before something breaks. Itsuki pauses in confusion as dark energy clings to his palm. She covers her face in terror, expecting the apparatus to detonate. Hana and the onlookers flinch as a sharp cracking sound echoes through the hall. Itsuki stands surrounded by dark void energy as the indestructible crystal ruptures under his bare hand. The instructor stares in disbelief at the shattered crystal, realizing the last person to destroy a testing orb like this was a legend from 10 years ago. That legend was Taewajin, making Itsuki the first candidate in a decade to pull off such a feat. She offers Itsuki a spare crystal and asks if he has enough mana left to keep going. Itsuki calmly reassures her that he still has plenty of energy to spare. He walks away completely unbothered, leaving her stunned that he managed to shatter the crystal without draining himself. Curious about what kind of person he really is, she uses mana detection on the residual energy left in the room. The moment she taps into his residual aura, she recoils in instant shock. She staggers back, terrified by the sheer intensity of what she senses. His mana radiates deep boiling rage, hatred, and a freezing killing intent that would break an ordinary person. Meanwhile, Itsuki casually makes his way toward the final evaluation zone. Seiya catches up to him with a thoroughly defeated Take dragging behind her. Seiya explains that Take is sulking because his attack score ended up lower than hers. Take slumps in despair, praying his overall score stays above 60 so he avoids being kicked out. Seiya snaps at Take for taking his frustration out on Itsuki, while Take begs to survive the cut. She turns back to Itsuki, encouraging him to focus on finishing his final test strong. Itsuki nods quietly, taking in their situation. He waves goodbye as he splits off toward his testing area. Seiya gives him a bright wave goodbye, telling him she will see him soon. The second Itsuki leaves, Seiya chops Take over the head for complaining. She admits she is worried Itsuki might actually throw his final test on purpose. Take doubts Itsuki would sandbag just to join them in the extra training group. In reality, Itsuki checks his system and confirms he plans to keep his total score under 80 to stick with them. He aims for a score of 0 on the agility test until a hostile voice calls out to him. Fumiya Futagi and Keijin Imamichi step up, smirking now that they have finally tracked him down. Itsuki turns back, completely unfazed and ready if they want another round. Keijin tells him to hold off, promising to fight him properly once the exam wraps up. Sparks fly as the two lock eyes in an intense standoff. Itsuki finds it hilarious that Keijin acts like he is doing him a favor when he was the one who issued the challenge. Shrugging it off, Itsuki enters the agility venue to focus on the task at hand. The examiner explains that this evaluation is a straightforward game of cat and mouse. He reveals his level 40 order breaker status and announces he will be playing the cat. That leaves all the candidates to play the role of the helpless mice. He sets a 1-minute limit inside the red circle for a perfect score, making the candidates boast that it sounds like free points. Fumiya Futagi steps up first as Keijin tells him not to embarrass their region. Fumiya smirks, fully confident that his speed as a lightning elementalist makes him uncatchable. Coating himself in lightning, he taunts the examiner, warning him not to get played by a mouse. The examiner just smirks back, saying that all depends on the mouse. Before Fumiya can even react, the examiner completely vanishes from sight. Instantly, a shadowy figure with glowing eyes appears right behind Fumiya's head. Fumiya Futagi gets slammed into the ground before he even realizes what hit him. The examiner just smirks while checking his stopwatch, confirming Futagi lasted a total of 0.47 seconds. The crowd freaks out over the instant defeat, but Itsuki immediately notices the examiner is using a movement skill. Both Itsuki and Keijin Imamichi lock in, realizing the speed is manageable if they track it properly. With the first candidate taken out, the examiner casually calls up mouse number 2. Keijin steps into the ring completely unbothered, while his allies cheer him on. He glances back, telling everyone to watch closely because he plans on getting a perfect score. Keijin makes it clear that his rank has nothing to do with family status. He is number 1 purely on skill. The examiner lunges from behind without warning, while someone in the crowd yells out a useless heads-up. Keijin dodges the grab by a hair, proving his reaction speed is the real deal. The crowd loses their minds over the dodge, completely shocked that anyone managed to slip away. Itsuki watches closely and notes that Keijin moved purely on instinct long before the warning was shouted. Itsuki tries to analyze how Keijin pinpointed the examiner's position without even looking. The examiner grins, genuinely amused that this candidate actually has decent reflexes. Keijin locks all his focus onto the examiner as they trade high-speed dodges across the ring. Using Thunder Breaker Vision, Itsuki tracks the fight and notices Keijin's speed is already starting to drop. The examiner zeroes in on that slight slowdown, ready to end the round. Cornered and refusing to fall here, Keijin prepares to trigger his air cannon skill. Instead of aiming at the examiner, Keijin uses the heavy skill recoil to twist his body midair and slip past the grab. The examiner presses right back in, questioning how he expects to dodge while completely off balance. Keijin immediately fires off a full-power air cannon directly at him. The shockwave knockback blasts Keijin clear across the ring, buying him precious distance to catch his breath. He skids across the floor to a complete stop, barely resetting his stance. The examiner brushes himself off, acknowledging Keijin's clever tactics while noting he is running on pure fumes. The examiner summons a massive blue beast aura and declares game over. With no room left on the ground, Keijin suddenly leaps straight into the air. He activates Sky Walk, solidifying the air beneath his feet to run right through the sky. Before Keijin can celebrate his aerial escape, the examiner instantly teleports above him and grabs his head. Keijin gets slammed down into the dust, coughing heavily as the examiner stands over him. The examiner checks his timer with a grin, teasing him for coming so close. He announces a survival time of 1 minute and 2 seconds, officially clearing Keijin for a passing score. Itsuki watches from the sidelines, actually looking forward to testing his own skills against this guy. After Kazutora Sano finishes, the examiner heaps praise on him while his teammates cheer him on. Sano bows respectfully, completely flattered by the high compliments. The examiner calls up Sano Ikatora next, who brags that he has already figured out the instructor's attack patterns. Itsuki overhears him and quietly warns that he might end up disappointed. Sure enough, the examiner pins Ikatora in just 0.55 seconds before he can even react. With the southern candidates finished, the examiner calls up Tenma Itsuki to step into the ring. Keijin and the rest of the crowd watch closely, doubting Itsuki since he isn't broadcasting any obvious aura. Itsuki ignores the chatter and decides his personal goal for this run is to last exactly 5 seconds. The examiner immediately lunges forward at high speed to catch him off guard. Itsuki starts dodging across the ring while the examiner stays right on his tail, counting down the seconds. Bright energy trails carve across the arena floor as they weave around at top speed. Watching from the edge, Keijin assumes Itsuki is panicking and backing himself into a corner. That's when Itsuki triggers Thunder Breaker, boosting his agility by a full 100%. He flash steps right past the examiner's outstretched hand in a split second. The examiner freezes in shock, unable to process how Itsuki hit a speed he couldn't even track. To make matters worse, Itsuki casually taps him on the shoulder as he slips by, realizing he just pissed him off. The examiner treats his role like an apex predator that has never let a single mouse escape. Refusing to be humiliated, he unleashes a massive feline aura and decides to stop holding back. Enraged, he charges forward at full power to end the match instantly. Itsuki turns around completely unfazed as the examiner closes the distance. Right as the timer hits 4 seconds, Itsuki easily tracks the examiner's incoming strike. Dust sweeps across the ring, leading the crowd to think the match is officially over. Through the haze, the examiner manages to grab hold of Itsuki's collar. He smirks, asking Itsuki why he didn't dodge if he was fast enough to track his movement. Itsuki just grins back and calmly says 5 seconds. The examiner glances down at his digital stopwatch and sees it stopped at exactly 0005.00. He breaks into a cold sweat, completely stunned that Itsuki engineered the exact time down to the millisecond. Itsuki casually asks the speechless instructor to announce his score and let go of his shirt. Itsuki figures 5 seconds on the agility test gets him low enough points to land in needs observation, while Cajun keeps trash talking his combat sense. Cajun scoffs and turns away, totally unfazed by Itsuki asking for a duel right on the spot. Kazutora Sano doubts Itsuki can stand a chance against Cajun, but Cajun insists he will crush him anyway. The Southern trainees talk big about how nobody back home can last against Cajun, giving Itsuki 6 minutes at best. Cajun heads back to take his turn, warning his group to focus on passing instead of chatting. Word spreads through the crowd that a North Rank 1 guy named Tenma Itsuki broke the original testing crystal. Cajun listens in as the other candidates debate if North's top guy is stronger than South's top guy. The trainees keep hyping up Cajun as a total monster, itching to see who comes out on top. The Mana test instructor brings out the replacement crystal and asks who wants to go next. Cajun decides to step up, insisting that talk is cheap and only raw strength matters. He calls out his name as South Continent's top candidate and walks straight to the testing station. The instructor takes one look at Cajun's striking silver hair and matching eyes. Before she can even lay out the basic rules, Cajun immediately cuts her off and grabs the crystal. He pours his energy in without hesitation, showing off a massive mana supply. Cajun overloads the crystal to max capacity on purpose, just to prove he can match Itsuki's feat. The examiner is thoroughly impressed by his full power output and promises to restore his mana shortly. Over with Itsuki's group, Itsuki plays dumb about his low speed score while Seiya stares at him suspiciously. Take brags about lasting 8 seconds, thrilled that he somehow scored higher than Itsuki. An announcement overhead reveals that all entry tests are complete, and final scores are hitting their bracelets now. Take checks his screen to find a score of 61, officially putting him in the needs observation group. Seiya gets a 62, securing her spot in the same group right alongside Take. Take teases Seiya for getting just 1 point higher, glad they all get to stay together. Itsuki starts sweating, worried his 5 seconds on agility accidentally scored him too high. Take and Seiya assume Itsuki easily aced everything into the excellent group. Itsuki gives them an awkward smile, internally panicking over his math. When his score finally pops up, both Take and Seiya stare in complete disbelief. His agility score was just 5 points, giving him a clean total of 80 and keeping him in needs observation. Futagi brags about Cajun scoring a perfect 100 across all tests, but Cajun tells him to shut up. Cajun confronts Itsuki directly, demanding to know if he remembers their promise to fight. Itsuki accepts without flinching as the rest of the candidates watch the tension build between them. The agility instructor interrupts their staring contest and steps in. Instead of stopping the clash, the examiner smirks and says he actually wants to watch it go down. He decides a fight between North Rank 1 and South Rank 1 is way too good to miss an audience. The instructor officially schedules their duel for 8 p.m. at Training Ground 1, leaving the entire crowd hypocritically hyped. The agility examiner smirks, clearly enjoying how much chaos he just set up. As the crowd clears out to grab food, the examiner calls Tenma Itsuki aside for a quick chat. The rest of the trainees head out, hyped up and ready to grab good spots before 8 p.m. Tenma tells Take and Seiya to go ahead without him so he can get some rest. Once they are alone, The examiner admits he knows Tenma was holding back during the agility test. He explains he gave Tenma a low score of 5 to help cover his real strength, but hyped up the fight as a small punishment for sandbagging. He warns Tenma to stay careful if he wants to keep his true power a secret. Tenma just asks if Kazutora Sano can even force him to go all out. The examiner walks away, reminding him that Kazutora holds a special grade gift and telling him to put on a good show. Tenma realizes Kazutora's power bends reality just like his own nirvana, hoping Overmimesis can steal a useful counterskill during their fight. Sayer and Take catch up with Tenma, asking why he was daydreaming before inviting themselves over to rest. Take loses his mind when he realizes Tenma rented a whole luxury villa as their new base. Seeing a fully stocked kitchen, Take flexes and takes full charge of cooking dinner. While Take cooks, Seiya confronts Tenma, bringing up the time a skeleton soldier attacked their school. Tears well up in her eyes as she scolds him for breaking his promise to stay safe. Tenma tries to explain the rules of being an order breaker, but she cuts him right off. She calls him out for taking a direct hit on purpose, just because he knew his Blue Lotus passive would heal him afterward. She pokes his forehead and lectures him to value his life more, while Take jokes from the kitchen that her speech routine is starting again. Take serves a full spread of cooked fish and dishes, making sure Tenma eats before his big match. At Training Ground 1, spectators go wild placing point bets on who will win between North Rank 1 and South Rank 1. The crowd acknowledges that the entire camp turned out to watch this match. The instructors step up and shout for everyone to quiet down so they can lay out the rules. Tenma and Kazutora enter the ring together to deafening cheers from the crowd. The examiner drops the real bombshell. Both fighters agreed to lethal rules, meaning injuries or death are completely on them. With an intense look, the examiner states that if both fighters give consent, the duel starts instantly. Both Tenma and Kazutora smirk with full consent, giving the examiner the green light to call the start. Kazutora opens immediately with his vacuum skill, creating an air draft that drags Tenma straight toward him. With Tenma pulled right into range, Kazutora fires a full-power air cannon point-blank. The blast slams directly into the ground, swallowing the arena floor in a massive cloud of smoke. Spectators in the crowd can barely believe their eyes seeing Itsuki shrug off a point-blank air cannon without even flinching. Behind his raised hand, Itsuki's eyes glow with a cold look that makes everyone realize he is on an entirely different level. Wind slashes cut through the air as both fighters trade high-speed strikes. Their footwork tears up the ground as they dig in for a direct hit. Itsuki and Kajin lock wrists in a brutal contest of strength, cracking the arena floor beneath their feet. Shin watches from the stands, completely stunned by how primitive their battle has become. Even though they look matched at first, Shin notices Kajin is actually getting pushed back. Kajin breaks into a cold sweat as he realizes he feels like he is trying to push an unmovable wall. Itsuki smirks right in his face, mocking him by asking if he forgot to eat breakfast today. Enraged by the insult, Kajin charges up his air cannon and fires it straight into Itsuki's face. A massive energy beam erupts upward, completely swallowing the arena in light. When the dust clears, Itsuki just cracks his neck without a single scratch, leaving Kajin in total disbelief. Realizing strength won't work, Kajin coats himself in wind magic to switch to raw speed. He circles Itsuki with high-speed strikes, aiming to wear down his defenses from every angle. Itsuki tracks his movement effortlessly, grabbing Kajin mid-strike and slamming him into the floor. Kajin's allies yell out in panic as they watch their top fighter get flattened. As Kajin struggles to get up, Itsuki stands over him and asks why he is still holding back. Itsuki realizes Kajin's lack of lethal intent is keeping Overmimesis from triggering, so he decides to play the villain to draw out real bloodlust. Itsuki leans down with a sinister smile, asking Kajin if he has any shame left. He grabs Kajin by the throat, lifting him off his feet with total disrespect. With zero effort, Itsuki hurls him across the arena right into the wall. He looks down at him, telling Cajun to check a mirror because he looks completely pathetic. The crowd snaps, screaming insults at Itsuki for his toxic behavior. Futagi and Kazutora yell at the top of their lungs, furious that Itsuki is disrespecting Cajun. Seiya worries that Itsuki is acting way out of character, but Take tells her to just trust him. Cajun completely snaps in rage, erupting with intense wind aura and genuine killing intent. Itsuki's eyes glow red as he senses the incoming bloodlust, knowing his plan worked perfectly. Cajun unleashes his wind blade, firing a massive razor-sharp crescent slash straight at him. The lethal wind blade tears through the air, heading straight for Itsuki. Cajun gets hyped up, claiming Itsuki will finally taste a real fight once he goes all out. He realizes Itsuki can somehow see his wind blades, proving he has detection skills active. So Cajun gathers energy to unleash an attack big enough to cover the entire arena. He triggers his B-rank wind blade tornado, summoning a massive vortex. He gives Itsuki a choice: step out of bounds to forfeit or get torn apart. Inside the storm, Itsuki stays calm as Overmimesis kicks in to start analyzing the technique. Seiya and the spectators panic, shouting for Itsuki to forfeit before he gets killed. Even Futagi and Kazutora look horrified at how brutal Cajun is being. The crowd begs the examiner to jump in and stop the match before it's too late. But the examiner just smirks, refusing to interfere while their fighting spirits are peaking. Itsuki summons his black ice wall armor to tank the incoming wind slashes, while the skill analysis climbs. The crowd is shocked seeing him pull out black ice armor when he's supposed to be a lightning user. Cajun mocks him for using armor weak against wind, but Itsuki vows to hold out until analysis hits 100%. Cajun laughs, revealing his Silver Eye gift drop skill mana costs by 90% and instantly regenerates it. Spectators like Shinakagami lose hope, knowing Cajun can spam his attacks infinitely. The wind storm batters Itsuki, but his skill analysis reaches 95%. Seeing Itsuki drop his ice armor, Shin assumes he's completely defenseless and about to die. The wind blades detonate directly on Itsuki, as progress ticks up to 98%. Inside a cyan lotus aura, Overmimesis finally hits 100% complete analysis. Covered in cut scars, Itsuki stands tall surrounded by cyan energy, ready to turn the fight around. Itsuki realizes his mana detection hit level 2, unlocking an auto counter effect against wind attacks. Checking his system interface, his base stats jump to 1600, making him equivalent to a level 32 fighter. When he stacks his active skill buffs on top, his functional total pushes right up against level 40. In the arena, a glowing blue lotus aura forms around Itsuki, completely neutralizing the incoming storm. The crowd gasps as the glowing light fades, revealing Itsuki standing shirtless with every single slash mark healed. Take and the other spectators panic in disbelief, unable to fathom how he recovered so quickly. Refusing to accept the turnaround, Cajun powers up his aura and vows to tear him down again. He unleashes his maximum output wind blade tornado, summoning a massive tempest across the entire arena. Itsuki drops into a low stance, anchoring himself directly inside the swirling gale. He channels his newly upgraded mana, preparing to turn defense into absolute offense. The examiners watch in shock as Itsuki's raw mana flow deadens the wind blades on contact. Standing unbothered as the storm breaks, Itsuki marvels at how effective his upgraded skill turned out to be. Cajun freezes in horror, completely unable to process how his ultimate wind skill was completely shut down. Itsuki ignites his arm in flames, declaring that Cajun earned his full respect as an opponent. Holding a glowing, fiery lotus orb in his palm, Itsuki promises to wrap up the duel with everything he has. He triggers Lotus Burst, detonating a massive pillar of fire that engulfs the entire ring. When the smoke clears, Cajun lies defeated on the scorched ground, barely keeping consciousness. Itsuki jokingly pretends he barely survived, but Cajun calls him out for standing there without a single scratch. The examiner raises his megaphone to officially call the match. Itsuki Tenma is publicly crowned the victor, securing a huge win for the North Province. Kajin stares at the sky as the flames die down, admitting he met a truly terrifying monster today. The crowd erupts into cheers, while gamblers mourn the massive points they lost betting on the South. Up in the observation deck, the head examiners order medical care for Kajin while finalizing their next plans. Instructor Kinoshita reviews Itsuki's ridiculous toolkit, realizing how dangerous his combination of skills really is. As Itsuki walks off, he catches a sudden flare of sinister magic coming from the instructor's platform. He glances back toward the balcony, unsettled by the strange energy he just felt. His friends rush over to celebrate, thrilled that he put the arrogant Southern trainees in their place. Itsuki shakes off his suspicion and agrees they should rest up before the mandatory extra training starts tomorrow. The next morning, Instructor Kinoshita addresses the trainees to announce the terms of their special evaluation. He reveals that camp resources are limited, meaning only the top 9 performers will survive the cut. The crowd breaks out in outrage after learning half of the remaining students are about to be eliminated. Itsuki locks eyes with Kinoshita, instantly recognizing him as the instructor who set up yesterday's duel. A map pops up explaining the test, a survival race from Area A to Area B. Area A is crawling with high-level calamity beasts, making a direct sprint almost suicidal for lower ranks. To make matters worse, the instructors reveal dark smirks as they prepare their role in the exercise. That's it for today's recap, guys. I'll update the video when there are new chapters piled up, so subscribe and open the notifications. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.